Pro Series is brought to you by Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Monster Energy, and DHL.
What's up, everyone? Frankie Muniz here, and I am super pumped to kick off this epic showdown at Gamescom. As someone who's had a blast with Asphalt Legends Unite, I can tell you there is nothing like the rush of competition. I want to give a huge shout out to all the finalists who've battled their way here. Seriously, you guys are on fire. Look, I might not be in the finals myself, but I am just as excited to see who's going to bring the heat today. Get ready for some crazy action. And remember, win or lose, you're all legends in my book. Let's make this one to remember. Good luck.
Being a teenager is full of challenges. Life used to feel like I was just drifting, asleep in a world where I didn't really belong. But now I've awakened. I've entered the era of everyone. This is a time when our passions and talents truly matter. I used to think I was just another face in the crowd, but now I see that everyone has something special to offer, including me. Life isn't just about obstacles, it's about opportunities. I may not have all the answers yet, but I know I'm on the right path. I'm awake, I'm ready, and this is my time, our time. The era of everyone has begun, and I'm excited to see where it leads.
Welcome to Asphalt Legends Unite Global Finals. It is Snapdragon Mobile Season 5 here at Gamescom Cologne. This is an exciting tournament, rapid fire coming your way live here. My name's Ian Chambers, alongside the one and only Max. Can't wait to get started.
Are we hyped, Gamescom Hall 8? How are we feeling? Let's get the show going. I'm gonna throw this and get the people out. I'm cheating. I'm feeling like cheating. I'm feeling like doing this.
I actually have been given some signed
fun
Asphalt Legends Unite caps here. Now, of course, the audience is going to start to fill up. The doors have just opened here at Gamescom. I've got a few. Hold on a minute. One second.
As you mentioned, yeah, we're here at the city of Cologne. We're at Gamescom 2024. We're in the Snapdragon Pro Series mobile event arena. There's a lot of money on the line. Ian, how much exactly?
$10,000 prize pool, and it's time to meet the players that are trying to get the lion's share of it. Let's bring them out onto the stage, starting with Pickle and Sheeta. Here they come, and the crowd that is already here at the front starting to make some noise for these players. Pickle is one of NA's best and a bit of a dark horse, and Sheeta, they call him the Korean Lightning. They're ready to get this going.
And we're ready for the next pairing, which is gonna be Zuchti and Fury Dark Hyper. Zuchti here repping for Germany. All the people at the Snapdragon Pro Series mobile event arena have their eyes on him since he's repping their home country. Can he do them justice or not? On the other side, we have Dark Hyper with his last place one finish, being over 6 months ago. Can he make it a second one this time? Let's see.
This is cold, isn't it? They're staring at each other before they get into the server. Let's now bring out Joe and Jägermeister. Two players really up for the challenge. Joe is consistent in NA, loves to talk the talk, but can he back it up here on the stage? And Jägermeister, an experienced player out of Poland here, and one of the favorites to potentially win it all.
For the last pairing, we have Future Flash and RPM Cincinnati. Future Flash, of course, being a 3-time champion, also holding the current title of being the previous iOS champion. Heavy crowd favorite. The question is, can he defend his title? Will he be exercised today? And on the other side, coming all the way from the USA, ready to paint Cologne red, white, and blue, it's RPM Cincinnati.
Future Flash is jacked, isn't he? Look at this guy. All right, you two.
Ready.
You two are going to be facing off first. Can we get a little fist bump here? Can we get... All right. Bit of sportsmanship. Should we do this?
I would say we send those two to the desk, and we also send it over to the desk with our casters and analysts for the day.
Come in, everybody. We're here with the Snapdragon Pro Series on Asphalt Legends Unite. I'll be your host for the duration of today, Trav, and I'm going to be joined by my resident know-it-alls when it comes to Asphalt Legends Unite, Harry and Marth down the line. How are you guys feeling about today?
Feeling absolutely fantastic here today. The first Unite event we're going to have. I'm super excited to see how the stories unfold between all these players in the competition.
Absolutely. Players coming up against each other that have never played each other before. The first Asphalt Legends Unite event. I am so excited. Thank you for having me.
I mean, that's what's so good about Asphalt Legends Unite, right? It's never seen before that these kind of two regions, or at least since like 2019, that the two different devices, or at least different types of devices, have come together to play. And that's what's so good about Asphalt Legends Unite. This kind of cross-platform allows us to bring these players together to be able to face off against each other. And there's so many matchups that we're going to see today that we haven't seen before just because of that. And it really is incredible to see. So we got some really, really solid matchups. We'll take a little bit of a look at the format as well, because that is what it all comes down to. We've had a lot of online in-game qualifiers, which is what's really interesting about that as well. So 4 players will come from Android, 4 players will come from iOS. We'll put them here today together at Gamescom, and they're going to battle it out to see who's going to take the lion's share of that prize pool. It's going to be a single elimination bracket. We're going to be knocking players down until we get to the end. But there's prize pool along the way. Even if you're knocked out first, you're not going to be going home with nothing, Harry.
No, you're guaranteed $500 bare minimum for qualifying, but, you know, just to be one of the top players here at the upper echelon of the Asphalt series and to be able to perform this well, it's monumental for every single one of these players. But like I said, with it being cross-platform, we haven't seen these players play all against each other. Normally you have it on separate platforms, but now, for the first time since 2019, back at Gamescom and Milan Games Week, it's going to be very exciting to see how things will dabble against each other.
Absolutely. And I think one of the most important things is going to be that cross-platform aspect, because these players, like I said, a lot of them have never played each other before.
Yeah, well, let's take a little bit of a look and meet the players.
Racing fans, buckle down your seatbelts. The tracks are set, the engines are revving, and the world's fastest are here to settle it all at Asphalt Unite 2024 World Finals. Leading the charge is the undisputed favorite, Future Flash, the Speed Demon. 3-time Snapdragon Mobile Open champion, ready to defend his title as the frontrunner. Hot on his tail, Sukti, the Trailblazer, who's hungry for that top spot and has proven time and time again that he's got what it takes to dethrone the king. And this rivalry goes even deeper, fueled by years of fierce battles. Jägermeister, the Nitro King, who's not just looking to settle the dues with Sukti on the biggest stage, but gunning for the ultimate prize. These three might be sworn rivals on track, but they aren't the only contenders. The Korean Lightning, Shita, is a bolt of speed that can strike when least expected. Then there's Elite Joe, ready to shuffle the leaderboard with every daring drift. Also in the mix is Fury Dark Hyper, the Colombian Crusader, who attacks every corner like a blade slicing through the air. And don't forget the American duo, Pickle the Maverick and RPM Cincinnati the Daredevil, both ready to show their brand of racing here at the World Finals. Rivalries will hit the red line, strategies will be tested, but in the end, only one will stand champion.
I've got to tell you, I absolutely love the nickname Korean Lightning. It's going to be one of my favorites. It's going to be one of my favorites, I will say. We touched a little bit on the prize pool, what the guys who go out early are going to be getting. They're not going to be going home with nothing, but everybody's going to want to get the lion's share.
Absolutely. It's a nice chunk of change, Marth. We have to definitely agree. I was going to say not bad for, you know, a day's work, but let's be honest, it's not just a day. The time trials, the everything they've done, the hours they've invested to try and qualify to this stage, it's just a huge amount. And now they've got to put a pedal to the worth and try and at least get one of those top spots.
Yeah, and like you said, hundreds of hours, if not thousands, between all these players going back and forth with those time trial events. It's going to be very fun to see which of those skill sets actually transfers over to a live tournament environment.
And that's something that $10,000 is going to go a long way for a lot of these players as well. Let's see if we look at the bracket. Obviously, we've taken a look at the players now, but the bracket, we'll see who is going to be facing off against who, and that's what matters. I believe we're going to be starting things off with Future Flash as well, which I think is a huge, huge thing. You know, he's been the man in Asphalt Legends for a while. So we'll start things off with Future Flash versus RPM Cincinnati. I'm going to ask you guys, what's your favorite matchup here?
It's going to be the second matchup for me. Don't get me wrong, with Future Flash, he's shown flair both on and off the serve, as you saw on stage just a few moments ago. But Elite Joe versus Jägermeister, this is a matchup you would tend to see in a semi, if not a grand final. So the fact that there's already a potential guaranteed upset is just insane.
No, I completely agree. And the other thing I want to point out is Elite Joe versus Jägermeister. That's going to be not only a battle of playstyles in the game, but also outside of the game, personalities are going to be clashing in that bracket right there.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many players that can, you know, we've got expected favorites. We've also got people who are big dark horses and can provide some huge upsets in there as well. But as we said, starting things off with Future Flash versus Cincinnati, then we're heading to Elite Joe versus Jägermeister just after that, and then Sukti versus Dark Hyper. And we wrap things up at the end of the quarterfinals with Pickle versus Sheeta. And then obviously later down the line, we close things down to the semi-finals and the grand finals. And that third, fourth playoff will be happening off stream to decide who gets the largest share of the cash.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'd like to see some kind of indicators of how these players are going to perform at the very beginning. But the problem is, there's not going to be much indicators due to the fact that this isn't a double elim. This isn't a best of 5 or best of 7. This is simply a best of 3 single elim. So you have to play to the best of your ability, and any aces or tricks you have up your sleeve, you have to use them right away.
Yeah, these players are going to be on the tip of their toes every single waking moment. And the one thing that I'm looking forward to is on the opposite sides of the bracket, we got 2 NA favorites. So we could potentially see an all NA grand finals.
Yeah, you're really pushing that NA one home. He does it. He loves it. He's got. I'm sensing a slight bit of bias in the home region here. Maybe you'll have to start rooting for some EMEA in there as well. But let's take a little bit of a look at the verses here as well, because we've said it multiple times now. The GOAT, some would argue. Future Flash, he wins pretty much everything he goes into. Really solid player from Europe and EMEA versus that Cincinnati from North America. Both of these players, such a high caliber.
Yeah, ever since I saw Future Flash back in 2019 at Milan Games Week, it was the first event he won. He showed up, he performed extremely well in a very tough competition at the time. And I knew that this player had a huge amount of potential over the course of the Asphalt esports scene. And do you know what? He's proved himself 5 years later. He's got a huge amount of championship victories underneath his belt, pretty much a repertoire, so to speak.
Oh, he is the favorite. That is unquestionable. But as we take a look at the track list here in a couple seconds, that is going to be another very curious aspect to where these players are driving, because the Apollo IE and the Apollo Evo are very handling focused vehicles, whereas we got some sprinkle of Greenland in here, which is a very top speed oriented track. So the way that these players use speed tricks, nitro, brake, drifting, all that sort of stuff, especially with these more handling focused cars, it's going to be interesting to see how they adapt their strategies for each of these different tracks.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think Cincinnati's kind of got to hope that these tracks are going to be, or at least was hoping that the tracks are going to be catering to him rather than his opponent in the Future Flash. And I was going to ask you as well, is it kind of like, is it going to favor one of these players having to go for the more handling route rather than the top speeds?
I think Future Flash is just a very good player overall. Doesn't matter which track, where he's going. He's got the perfect lines. He's got great nitro management. He's just a very clean racer, and that's where he kind of thrives on. But the only problem now is Cincinnati. What's his strategy going to be? Is he going to play dirty? I would play like pure filth right at the very beginning, and I wouldn't blame it if anyone else did. But in all fairness, with him right now, with Future Flash, he's going to be well aware of that. And even if he does get caught off guard at the very beginning by 1 or 2 seconds, he is the kind of guy who will close the gap and really put a lot of pressure onto you.
He is very well known for adapting to different playstyles on the fly very easily. The other thing, though, is with Cincinnati, he hasn't really appeared in many finals since 2021. So we could see a potential like dark horse upset coming up with an entirely new strategy that maybe Future Flash isn't really ready for, but my money's definitely on Future Flash.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Because of how much we see Future Flash, it kind of seems like Cincinnati's maybe got a bit of an upper hand in terms of being able to scout his opponents, what kind of routes he's going to take and that kind of thing. And maybe he'll be able to use that to his advantage. Whereas, as you said, Cincinnati, we haven't really seen him on the big stages since 2021. So I think that's probably something that's going to play into his hands, and I think he kind of needs all the help he can get.
Cincinnati hasn't got as much pressure onto him as he does with Future Flash. He's got a huge bullseye, huge target on his head right now, so the pressure's always going to be on him. But since it's been a few-year gap, I don't think Cincinnati, I think he's just right now just happy to be here, and if he makes any kind of progress making to the semi-finals or even the grand final, then, you know, have to see how things play out for him.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, with Future Flash, like you said, the target is on his back. I think everyone in this tournament, that's who you're looking for. That's the takedown. That's sort of the championship in and of itself is, did I take down Future Flash? Did I get that trophy away from him? Because he has his whole cabinet stacked with so many trophies. It's kind of ridiculous, honestly, how good this guy is at Asphalt. But the other thing with Cincinnati coming in with a bit of a break since 2021, like you said, bit of a dark horse coming into it, could get some strategies that maybe Future Flash isn't quite ready for, but that is going to be one of the most fun aspects as well. Like you said, with Asphalt Legends Unite being the first cross-platform tournament here in a very long time, these two players are on the different platforms. They have never faced each other before, despite these storied histories of players battling against each other in the past half-decade of Asphalt.
I mean, that's the thing as well. It's such a big scene to set. You know, it's Europe versus NA, it's iOS versus Android, and, you know, each one of those is a huge rivalry in itself. So coming together and being the first game of the day, it's going to be such a big, big treat for us.
They do, some people do mention that iOS do have, like, you know, the top players, but Android collectively have high caliber players just overall on average in terms of the median. But going into this now, Future Flash, he's going to be, as I mentioned before, very well aware of what people are going to do against him. He knows that there's going to be a bit of bashing and body blocking here and there. We expect that. We know Cincinnati is going to try and do that. If I was in his shoes and his position strategically, I'll try and get in front from the get-go. That's depending on what kind of, if he has inside lane a lot. Take it from there and then see what he can do going forth. But it's a tough nut to crack because, as like I said before, Flash does his homework and he's going to be very aware of what he could be up against.
Yeah, Marth, I'll come to you because can that be a bit of a curse as well? If you're really going at your opponent, trying to knock him, trying to wreck him, can that be an issue for you if you make the slightest bit of a mistake? Is it going to ruin you instead of him?
As soon as you see someone in that rearview mirror, especially if they're in an Apollo Evo, you get scared. You really do. Now, Future Flash kind of doesn't have that. He has had so much confidence over these past couple of years. It is quite incredible to see how unfazed he is by anyone in his rearview mirror. Even if he's from the back pedal, he doesn't seem any worry whatsoever, because he knows that at any opportunity he can take that chance and get the lead. But anti-stratting isn't really something we see a lot in Asphalt. Usually it's just once the pedal hits the metal, once the tires hit the track, that's what really counts. The philosophy behind it seems to disappear sometimes when the players are actually out on the track.
I think the best way to put Future Flash is he's fearless and he's not really bothered about anything like he'll treat a dual format setting or a 1v1 like it's a time trial still. That's the mentality he has, and that's the mentality you should have, really, because if you do get phased or pressured, as you mentioned before, know that someone's always behind you, you know, trying to close the gap and put the pressure on. It's a big factor in any racing title, but for him, the fact that he treats it like it's a time attack or time trial, it's just shows the experience he has underneath his belt over the last, 5+ years.
And is it that, Cincinnati hasn't been really attempting to qualify these things? Has he got some rust to kind of shake off, or is it just he hasn't been at the caliber to be able to get into these things recently?
Over the past couple of years, we've seen many players sort of shift in and out of the top echelon of Asphalt players. It's been a sort of wavy ride, especially with the Snapdragon Pro Series. We've seen a lot of players come up in the middle of it and sort of fade away as the series has gone on. But one thing that I want to note is with Cincinnati's sort of lack of appearance recently, those past couple of Asphalt Pro Series has been double elimination brackets, whereas here we're in that single stage elimination bracket. So that's something that maybe could put a little bit of sweat on Cincinnati's brow, whereas of course Future Flash, I mean, he's not going to care absolutely whatsoever.
Such an unforgiving format, that's the thing, I think that's good as well. I think that's a good thing, because not only have you got the pressure of that, but also they're both on stage. And, this is probably something that Future Flash especially is going to be very accustomed to. Cincinnati, we haven't really seen him on these kind of big stages since around 2021, as you guys mentioned. So I'm not sure if that's something that's going to come into effect as well, because I know in a lot of other esports, when players hit that stage, the nerves start to hit. And you guys have been mentioning Future Flash. He's cold as ice. He doesn't care. That's going to be another big thing playing into his hands, surely.
Oh, he's not bothered. I can tell you now, he's not bothered in the slightest. The only thing he would be bothered about is that it's single limit and it's a best of 3. He hasn't got a second life, and if something does happen at the very beginning, then it could cost him.
But here we go into the first race, Cincinnati versus Future Flash here on Cairo with the Apollo IE. Cincinnati doing a bit of a rail grind. They're trying to gain as much nitro as possible, but Future Flash is taking a very early lead here. Not sure why Cincinnati seems to be bouncing back and forth between these walls, but Future Flash is sailing towards a victory here as he's already gathering some airtime on those barrel roll ramps across the straightaway here in Cairo.
Certainly is indeed. It seems like we may have an issue, but we'll double check that later on, because we know at Cincinnati there might be an issue, which is understandable. But Future Flash, we were like, okay, he's a little bit too ahead of himself. I think he needs to give the poor guy a chance. But I did assume the same. At the first few bends, I thought, okay, just riding the railings to gain a bit of nitro, but doesn't seem to be the case. But we are going to do a restart shortly, and you saw there that they're riding the Apollo IE. So I think we've talked a little bit before the show as well, where the Apollo IE, compared to the two vehicles we're going to be using, the IE does have the additional handling and the nitro, but with the other vehicle, with the Evo, you do have, of course, the speed and the acceleration.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the really cool things about these two cars is actually in real life, they're built on the same platform. So in game, despite those very slight differences, as you mentioned, overall, they are going to play very similarly. So I think that's going to be something that these players can look forward to, is sometimes they do change cars throughout the life of the tournament. Whereas here, even though they will change those cars, I think it'll be very similar strategies, very similar play styles. They won't have to change their mindset too much because these cars are very similar in their behavior. Yeah, I think between the two, I think it's, in terms of the vehicles and the speed and acceleration, I don't think that's going to phase them too much. It's more the handling and how they're going to go around these corners, which is going to be a little bit of a difference. I think it's roughly about 5 to 10% difference in between the handling between both vehicles, but we'll have to see if that's going to affect them in any way. At this level, it probably will do to a certain extent, but both players are just getting ready to go into the first series, so it won't be too long before we get into our first match of today. And just to let everyone know at home, it is single elimination and it will be a best of 3, apart from the grand final, which will be a best of 5, but that's not till a little bit later on, so we don't want to get too ahead of ourselves here, because we've still got some great matches to come. But I'm still very curious to see with Cincinnati how he's going to perform, because I haven't seen too much of him. Of course, with me being the EU region, I've seen plenty of Flash. Let's be honest, who hasn't at this point? It does have to be Asphalt Series or just the region alone. Just globally, he is an absolute phenomenon. No, and I mean, that point that you mentioned earlier about the EU-NA rivalry, that's something we've seen for such a long time here in the Snapdragon Pro Series as well. Despite them competing on, completely different continents, every once in a while when we do see those clashes of play styles hit each other, we get some really interesting and fun moments. But one of the things that I'm looking forward to is during the Snapdragon Pro Series in previous seasons, we've seen so much of that North American iOS demolition derby, whereas on Android, we see more precise racing. We see very clean racing. There's almost like a gentleman's agreement between the players to not knock each other down, not try and get too close to each other to try and block other players. But with NA and iOS, that all the rule books are just thrown out the window. We see people smashing into barriers, smashing into each other, knockdowns like crazy. I personally love to see it. That Demolition Derby gameplay is so fun to watch. But I think that's another point, is we're going to see all of those play styles finally clash here in Asphalt Legends Unite. I think that's the difference, isn't it? As a spectator, as a viewer watching this, I prefer all that, a bit of, bish bash bosh here and there. But as players, as we used to be both once upon a time, it's the last thing we would want, especially if you're a player who assumes you are the better between the two and you want to make a name for yourself and you want to be as clean as possible. But as a viewer, it's a kind of a completely different concept. So, but now we're just viewing it. Actually, we would prefer that in comparison, but we'll have to see how things go. But we do have some great matchups coming up very shortly. And there's a few names we haven't actually talked upon who aren't here today, who haven't made it, but may see at some point in the future. No Mion from South Korea. We haven't got either Fra, or we haven't got Alex either, which is a little bit of a shock to the system. No, you're completely right. I mean, when I was looking at the player names for this bracket, I was honestly quite surprised. I mean, not to put them down or anything like that, but seeing names like Pickle, Sheeta, those players are not what you would expect at the top echelon. But what that means is that maybe that they've adapted strategies. Maybe they have something up their sleeve that we haven't seen before. They're ready to rock in this new era of Asphalt with Asphalt Legends Unite, whereas previously, like you said, we had those heavy favorites like Alex, especially, usually coming second place at Future Flash, of course. Which was very funny to see sometimes. But you're right, it was a bit weird to not see him here, but we're going to get back to the action rather quickly here with Future Flash versus RPM Cincinnati on Cairo. And finally, we do have both the players ready to roll, getting some nitro here onto the straightaway. We see Cincinnati trying to see if he can save up for a little bit of shockwave, using that perfect nitro to get around the corners just fine. But Future Flash takes a very early lead, going down the barrels. Will he take that other ramp? No, and usually you see players try and get that, but we see Cincinnati trying to do a little little bit of an overtake on the inside line. He will make it successful, not going out of the track just yet. Future Flash on the back pedal, going to try and have to climb back here, going a different route, which we usually don't see. He's going to have to take the outside line for that. No, he drifts onto the inside using Shockwave to speed up. Cincinnati pulling out a reverse nitro there to try and get that airspeed. There we go. He's going to go onto that straightaway into the corners here, trying to bring up Shockwave, and it looks like Cincinnati is really pulling out that lead. Future Flash isn't doing a whole lot to try and claw it back.
Yeah, using that perfect nitro to get this next corner, but still only about half a second behind him. Still got plenty of time to try and work things out as we're just at the halfway stage going into that second lap, as Future Flash now still trailing behind just a tad. Not something we actually expected, and that one missed jump from Future Flash, I think he was more prioritizing playing safe rather than taking those risks, which isn't really in Future Flash's characteristics or his forte. Normally we expect him to go for it, but he's going for it this time around because he needs to take the risk to try and overtake with that Shockwave as well. Still directly behind him, but was able to close the gap a little bit. But with Cincinnati actually getting a little bit more airtime, he's also going to get a little bit more nitro with it as well.
Great blocking by Cincinnati to secure that lead, make sure Future Flash doesn't have anything to say about trying to overtake. We saw that attempt. It was quite good. We almost saw Future Flash go on top with the barrel roll and try and get around him, but that wasn't working out. Cincinnati knew exactly how to block Future Flash, and with this first race about to come to a close, it seems like Future Flash might not be able to take it, but as I say it, he's going on the inside line, overtaking Cincinnati in this very last corner, and Cincinnati forced to go to the lower route, won't get a whole lot of airtime, and Future Flash miraculously takes the win in our first race here at Gamescom.
Talk about kind of close. I will be honest with you, there was a portion of me, and I think a lot of people at home as well, where we were like, this could be the first track going to Cincinnati. But honestly, for him, he put on a great performance at the very beginning. The reason why Future Flash was trailing behind for such a long portion of that matchup was missing that one particular jump. You can see that Future Flash just wanted to take things a little bit safer than required. But when he realized how much he fell behind, he didn't not play it safe in that second lap. He had to take every risk in the book, but it just shows just one missed jump, one misplay, one minor error could potentially cost you the track.
Yeah, you're totally right. I mean, we saw a huge shift of change in terms of playstyle from Future Flash from that first to second lap. You know, in the first part, we saw, oh, he's in the lead. He's going to take it cautiously. Cincinnati with this incredible overtake, taking the lead up until this very final moment here in the second lap. And that's where Future Flash really sort of pulled out every single stop he had. He tried to go through for that inside line, tried to go above and beyond with that barrel roll. Wasn't working out until that very last corner we're going to see in a second here with that incredible overtake. And I don't think Cincinnati was ready for it. That bump, that clash. Again, we usually see this gentleman's agreement to not play super dirty, but in this instance, Future Flash knew exactly what he needed to do to take that lead.
And you can see he purposely saved the nitro he had left remaining to use that double nitro to try and budge him a little bit, get in the inside lane, and it managed to work out for him. But let's be honest, it was the final bend. He had to make something work, and the patience he had to save it right up to the very end just shows the unique experience that Future Flash has. But as we expected, it's going to be 1-0 to start things off with in Cincinnati. But you know what? I've seen some flavor, you know, some life in him, so to speak. It's not like he was trailing behind by such a huge margin. We've seen some impressive stuff coming up from Cincinnati, but we've seen some potential come out for him as well. Just, you know, a few indicators coming from that one particular track.
Yeah, for me, I think with, you know, the way that Cincinnati was playing, we definitely see some potential here. But I think in order to win that whole series, he would have needed to take that first race by a mile right out of the gate to maybe scare Future Flash or just do something to try and put Future Flash on that back pedal. Whereas now, Future Flash up 1-0, that's going to instill confidence. That's going to sort of bring us back to normality here with Future Flash being in that more upper bracket situation, being that favorite. And as we see your map winner, Future Flash, for that first race with a time of under 2 minutes, which is really impressive for that track, but we do know the Apollo IE has some incredible handling capabilities.
Trying to implement fear into a fearless opponent, it's definitely a tough nut to crack, but we're going to get straight into the second track onto Rome straight away. Ooh. And it seems like Future Flash, I think it did say left, but I think it's going to continue anyway. It's Cincinnati directly behind him with that double nitro. Is going to try and shockwave across over this next jump. But Future Flash, not really too much of a surprise, but he has a lead very early on.
There we go. Cincinnati trying to take that inside line with the extra spin. That's going to cost him a couple of seconds as he tried to use Shockwave to catch up. But I think both players fell into the river in the beginning beginning of that track, which is what happened. I think they both got respawned because of that. And now, as a result, Future Flash with a heavy favorite, Cincinnati trying to go with that inside line at the beginning portion of the track. And in order to get that, you want to make sure your spins are perfect. Whereas with Cincinnati, he had that overspin, that couple of extra seconds that were added. And as a result, Future Flash rolling down this straightaway here with absolutely nothing to fear. And look, I think Cincinnati is going to have to pull out something really special, especially on that first part of that second track there, that second lap where you go across the river. You're going to have to try and do something that tries to get you as much airtime as possible. If you're unfamiliar, airtime in Asphalt Legends Unite actually brings your top speed 30% over what the normal limits of the car is. So really, you do want to be in the air as much as possible without trying to wreck, without trying to do anything crazy. And as you can see, Future Flash not doing any stunts, just bringing very cautious gameplay here, making sure that he knows he's in the front. He knows that he doesn't really have to do anything but block Cincinnati to try and prevent that overtake.
You see now Cincinnati just around the same gap as where we left off in that first lap, but Cincinnati now using that perfect nitro, go around this next bend. You can see that Future Flash is playing a little bit safer, as you mentioned earlier at the beginning of that second lap, but that perfect nitro once again just using that 360 just to gain a little bit more nitro so you can shockwave over this next jump. But Future Flash is just pulling ahead at the moment, and the reason why they're missing that jump on the left-hand side is just due to the fact that, yeah, sure, you get a lot of nitro, but with the airtime and the speed you have with it, sometimes it can cost you and can be quite risky, which neither player is going to actually bother with at all, which is completely understandable. But Future Flash at least a second or two ahead now. Go use that shockwave to go over this next jump, but you can see Cincinnati trying to do everything he can to close this gap. Looks like it's not to be, and Future Flash will take the first series 2-0, and we'll be seeing him later on in the semi-finals.
Absolutely great racing by Future Flash. We saw in that second race, he knew exactly what he had to do. And like I was sort of predicting, we're just going to see the most precise gameplay out of him. Once Cincinnati was on that back pedal, that second place, it was sort of over, in my opinion. I mean, there wasn't really much Cincinnati could do. So great job by Future Flash. Incredible victory here. And it's unfortunate for Cincinnati not qualifying for an event since 2021, having a great opportunity here, but kind of maybe got a little bit of bad luck going matched against Future Flash in the first race.
Yeah, it's not the seeding you like to go for at the very beginning, but every single player has, you know, a bad first game. It can happen, but he was still able to come out on top after that first track, which wasn't too bad.
Future Flash, who's just emerged victorious straight away here on the stage. It felt a little bit too easy for you there.
The first race was very stressful, actually. I think the stress came up to me and I messed up, but in the end, somehow I caught up. That was unbelievable, really. I almost thought I lost it. I was very upset, but I caught up in the end, so I'm very happy about that. As for the second race, I think it was quite easier. There were some messing ups here and there, but I still managed to pass and give a distance to my opponent, and now I've forward the win with a 2-0. Very good start.
I could see there on the first map where things didn't go your way, you brought it back, and the way that you reacted, you were just over the moon. You were celebrating like crazy. How much do you enjoy these LAN experiences, because you've been victorious at them in the past?
I really do enjoy them. Here is where the real deal comes, and like the LAN events are the most stressful when you have an audience watching, and it's really different. You know, when playing at home versus here, it's completely different, of course. The stress is unbelievable, but what to do, you have to deal with it. And I'm very happy, especially for the first race. I messed up completely there. Was a total big mistake, but I caught up, so that's what matters. And I'm really happy for that.
Well, many consider you the favorite to win this thing. The main question that I will always have about this guy is, how do you find time to play when you're obviously always in the gym? But we're going to see him back out here very shortly. But for now, let's get back over to our desk.
I mean, really interesting insight there from Future Flash in that, you know, he owns up himself that he messed up, and I think you could see it in that first game, how much of a comeback he really had to make and just about edged it in the closing seconds.
Yeah, that one initial jump which he missed, I was a little bit shocked about. I don't know if it was because he wanted to play safe or he literally just missed it, but I think when he realised and he just continued with the double nitro and just hoped for the best to see if he wouldn't get overtook, but he did get overtook straight away. Cincinnati took advantage of that straight away, but the fact that he felt like he messed up, he played bad and still took it, just shows the pedigree of skill skill that Future Flash has in his back pocket.
It wasn't really a question whether or not Future Flash was going to win this. I had a little bit of worry with that first race, honestly, when Cincinnati took that lead. Yeah, I mean, it was a big opportunity for Cincinnati to try and take it, and it just didn't play out. But, of course, the series favorite winning here in the first opening race.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. As someone who's not as familiar with this game, I was like, wait, I've been told this guy's the favorite. I've been told this guy's going to win, and now he's, you know, considerably far behind in that first race after a slight mistake. But the second one seemed smooth sailing for him, at least, just in the lead pretty much the entire way. And it seemed like it was just defensive, didn't really take too many risks or anything like that, and just managed to bring it home in quite a swift 2-0 in the end.
Yeah, it's understandable to play safe when you're a couple of seconds ahead, but I don't think it was more playing safe. I think he naturally just missed that one particular jump. But it happens to the best of us. You know, when it's your first game on a big stage like that, it can happen. I say he's a fearless opponent, but he will be now that he's kind of calmed down a little bit. Like I said before, a little bit stressed. I think the adrenaline got to him during that first track, but he seems to be right now. He's the kind of guy where he should, you know, go smooth sailing. That's, of course, if he continues winning.
Yeah, well, we got a little bit of a look at a fresh game loft game for you guys. Let's take a bit of a look at this trailer. A little bit of a teaser trailer there for Disney Speedstorm. Looks like an absolutely incredible game. Going to be available on mobile, console, and also PC. Obviously, Disney and Pixar characters in that. It looks really exciting, lethal.
Yeah, it does look pretty sick, actually. I might have to dabble in that a little bit when I get home.
I just love driving with my boy Donald Duck. He's my favorite.
Yeah, I mean, it does look really interesting. We're going to move swiftly on to the next match. First one already out of the way. We've already sent someone home, sadly, but we're moving on to Elite Joe versus Jägermeister. And I'm going to do the same again, guys. I know it's awful to have this question, but predictions, guys. I'm going to need them.
I'm more licking my lips to decide like how things are going to turn out, but I'm really not sure. But because I've seen a little bit of Joe, of course, being the EU region, I see Jägermeister a lot more in comparison with what I'm familiar with his style of play and what he can bring to the table. But Elite Joe, I'd love to know your thoughts because you know you're more familiar with his style, and with Jägermeister, he's quite a dominant force in the Android scene in Europe.
Absolutely, and with the past couple of Snapdragon Pro Series with Elite Joe, we have seen some ups and downs. We've seen some ups with first place victories a couple of times in a row, and some downs with rage quitting in the middle of a tournament. So honestly, in my opinion, I think the conciseness and he's so clean. I think Jägermeister is going to take this victory because he's just so accurate with his driving.
Yeah, I mean, it really does seem that way. And you know, you mentioned to me a little bit earlier on that they have faced each other before back in the Countach series. So, you know, you want to give us a bit of insight to that and also the tracks as well.
Absolutely. So we have San Francisco, US Midwest, and Cairo. A big, nice section here for different variety. Mostly we got some handling and nitro-oriented tracks. Not really in terms of top speed. We don't see too much with that Cairo track, with the third track if we do need it. But US Midwest is my honest favorite because we have such a nice blend of twists and corners, and you do have that ability to, in the middle of the track sometimes, depending on the variant, you have some top speed focused areas where you can really let these cars shine.
Yeah, I agree. I think with US Midwest, you kind of get the full package. You get a bit of everything. It kind of excels and kind of shows who is the better driver, especially on some parts of US Midwest alone. But it's going to be interesting to see how Jägermeister is going to do. I know that in terms of his mental state and his fortitude, he does play extremely well no matter the conditions. But with Elite Joe, though, no tilting, please. That's all we could. I think especially in a best-of-3 single-limb format, now's not the time to do it, especially on the big stage. But I don't think he will. I think now he's back in this environment, he'll let that slide and then see how he performs. But we know from his accolades, he's a very strong force in the NA scene, and we'll have to see how Jägermeister can deal with it.
Yeah, that's the thing. And with mentality as well, it's completely amplified by being on stage. You know, if you're making rage quits before, it's amplified that little bit further when the stress starts to hit with being on the stage, being under pressure, and obviously with all the prize pool at stake, they're going to want to take every piece of that home, and that just always adds more and more stress on top of it. So we got to hope that we're going to have no rage quits and an incredibly close best of 3 today.
We'll have to see how that goes, but I'm pretty sure it won't, but let's keep our fingers crossed for that anyway. But nothing quite like a bit of flavour on the stage here and there, but we'll see what occurs. And the funny thing is, the winner of this incredible matchup, they've got to play Future Flash straight afterwards. So it's kind of like pick your poison, really, at this point. You know, even if Jägermeister may beat Elite Joe, he's got to then beat Future Flash straight afterwards, and then probably 60 after that, so his nemesis afterwards. So we're going to jump straight in now with Jägermeister's perspective to see exactly what shenanigans he's going to be up to already with the lead, using that shockwave to get around this next bend, the double nitro and the 360, just trying to keep himself in that front position, and we're going to see what on earth Elite Joe can do in order to close this gap.
Yeah, we see Jägermeister taking an early lead here. Elite Joe saving himself from a potential wreck here. That ramp can sometimes be a bit finicky, but Elite Joe saves it absolutely perfectly, using 360s here to stabilize himself, which was a great move, but unfortunately that leaves him on the back foot here into this first lap. Jägermeister sailing down that straightaway, really taking advantage of the Apollo Evo's top speed, using a great job there, going through that corner on the end. They're not going to take that first section. Oh, they will. Looks like they're taking different sections. Elite Joe opting for that airtime, whereas Jägermeister going for the traffic run, trying to get as much nitro as possible. It won't really change too much in terms of the gap, but actually Elite Joe using Shockwave to catch up into the second lap here, tries to, I think, gain a little bit of time. I think we've seen a little bit of catch up here, but Jägermeister still with a very convincing lead into the second lap.
I think you're right. It's roughly about half a second catch-up. Maybe he did okay with that nitro management with what he gained on that different route. But even now, though, still Jägermeister just continuing to play it cool, giving Elite Joe a hard time and a lot of work here. Some good airtime, some good spins, but it's not going to be enough here with Elite Joe now still trailing behind just a tad, as we haven't really got much, just a few bends now before we can get to the finish line. But Jägermeister still at least a second ahead, playing it cool, safe, and collectively with that shockwave of Elite Joe now, use that double nitro is going to the perfect nitro over this next bend. But it looks like it's going to be smooth sailing for Jägermeister on this first track, using that shockwave. Now going to get used to one of the final bends here. And it looks like Jägermeister looking very clean indeed. He's looking to put on a show for us here, winning the first track in this best of three. So now we're going to have to see what Elite Joe can do to capitalize and retaliate.
Yeah, we can see a little bit of disappointment with Elite Joe's face. He really tried to get some different tricks going in that first lap. We saw the attempted barrel roll, didn't quite pan out. And in that second lap, we tried to see him do it again. But unfortunately, he hit that wall on the side, which prevented him from getting extra nitro. So he got that airtime, but he wasn't able to get up to his top speed. So definitely seems like he was a little disappointed. Jägermeister, though, with a bit of excitement, maybe he has in the back of his mind that, wait a minute, if I win here, I'm going to have to face Future Flash. But you can't really have that as a competitor. You can't have that mindset. You have to think of the here and now. And right now, he has a 1-0 lead against Joe.
Yeah, in the EU MENA region, it will be the top dogs on both platforms going at it. Gotta love that cross-platform. This is what I'm talking about. With Elite Joe, we can see, yeah, sure, understandable, a little bit disappointed. He will have to create that reverse sweep in order to take down Jägermeister here. And does he have the caliber of skill and the potential to do it? Of course he does. He's one of the best players in North America. And we're going to see what he can do in order to try to change his luck a little bit. But for Jägermeister, he's going to be looking quite comfortable. He's going to be quite relieved after a clean win on that first track.
Yeah, and we did a couple of interviews with Elite Joe in previous seasons. As you can see, the save here was just absolutely amazing from Elite Joe. That could have been disastrous. That could have been an immediate loss. And granted, while he didn't pull it out in the end, it was a really great save there to keep him in the race, at least for the running. But with Elite Joe's, his mindset is something we talk about a lot of times over the past couple of Snapdragon Pro Series, and we've interviewed him, and he said that he's working on it. He says that, he's trying to calm himself down and be a bit more careful with how he plays and trying to prevent those rage quits that we've seen before. Yep. So if he can pull together his strength, his courage, and his incredible skill set, because his ceiling's probably one of the highest skill ceilings here, especially for the NA region, but it's going to take a lot to break the humbleness of Jägermeister. I mean, he doesn't really have a whole lot of grandioseness to him. He just plays really, really well. I mean, Jägermeister, definitely one of the other favorites besides Future Flash here, and I think it's going to be interesting to see if they do match up in that future bracket, because Future Flash coming from iOS, Jägermeister coming from Android, they don't really face each other all that often. So that's going to be an interesting matchup to see if, of course, Jägermeister can secure a 2-0.
Yeah, good nitro management, good clean lines coming up from Jägermeister. Treating it like a time trial, it was that clean, and it was very impressive stuff. And this is what I expected from Jägermeister, is what I've seen him do time and time again in every single Open Finals in this Snapdragon Pro Series. You can see the audience now just having a little bit of a gander, getting ready. But speaking of getting ready, it looks like the players will be getting ready shortly for the second track. It will be on the US Midwest. And it's like we mentioned before, it's the full package on this track, and normally we will see the better driver come out on top, but we haven't really seen any shenanigans from any players so far. I know we're just still early days, it's still only the second series, but we haven't really seen too much rough driving or any dirty plays, anything like that, but I could speak too soon. We'll find out, as it looks like Jägermeister will have the inside lane, will get the slight lead, and we can see what Elite Joe can do differently in order to try and catch up. But that was a lovely flip there from the side of that jump. It's going to give him some extra boost to get over, and he manages to do it. That was incredible stuff coming up from Elite Joe. And there's going to be Jägermeister having to try and play from behind, but he does have a bit more nitro compared to Joe. So let's see how he can try and change this up a bit.
You could not have done a more precise overtake. Elite Joe barely squeezing himself between the wall and Jägermeister going across through that section with the train. That was one of the cleanest overtakes I've ever seen in this game for a very long time. Elite Joe, as a result, out on first place here into the straightaway, catapulting himself into this next corner. This is going to be a very important corner because you launch yourself out with a bunch of airtime there, and as we can see, Elite Joe getting quite a bit of it. Jägermeister not getting as much as he would really like to, and using 360s instead of barrel rolls to try and get that airtime here. Going on the inside line, trying to do the overtake, not smashing into Elite Joe. We see some respect coming up, but they are neck and neck right up against each other, heading right into our second lap here after this next chicane. Oh man, this is going to be such a close race. They're trying to knock up against each other, but it's not quite to be. Jägermeister still on the back foot into the second lap.
Joe is body blocking really well. He did it 2 or 3 times during the last 15 seconds just to not really give Jägermeister any kind of leeway. And again, good flip again, good barrel roll off that straight jump, and it's going to try and go through a cross. But yeah, I'm still thinking about that. Very risky play coming up from Joe, but Joe's probably thinking to himself, if I don't do it now, when will be my next opportunity? You've got to take them when they come, but Elite Joe's still performing extremely well. About a second ahead so far, but knows that Jägermeister's directly on his tail and not made any mishaps at all in the slightest. Using that perfect nitro to scrape across, just trying to at least keep that lead. And now Joe is going to try and at least secure this to try and tie things up.
Yeah, Jägermeister really lacking a lot of nitro here on this straightaway, and I don't think that was, of course, a really necessarily thing for this victory here for Elite Joe, but he had so much more nitro down that straightaway. He got up to his top speed a lot easier than Jägermeister, and after that move from Elite Joe in that first lap, I think Jägermeister was taking a little bit aback, not really expecting something like that, but as you mentioned, Elite Joe really needed to pull out something incredible, which he did to secure this 1-to-1 tie-up here, so we will see a third track here on Cairo, I believe, and wow, look at Elite Joe sailing across the finish line in first place, making sure he doesn't go out without a fight.
The problem with Asphalt, or actually I wouldn't say the problem, I'll say the good thing about Asphalt, is as a player, when you see those opportunities arise, you just have to take it because, you know, you've only got a couple minutes per race and you don't know when a second opportunity is going to come. He knew it, he took it very early stages, but if he could secure at least a second lead after Jägermeister, then he's going to be laughing. And that's literally what he's done. So he's going to be going from heavily demoralized to, I think, heavily relieved is probably the best phrase to describe it.
Yeah, and the composure we're seeing here from Elite Joe is really great. Again, a very stark difference from what we've seen in previous Snapdragon Pro Series with the rage quit and the ups and downs with first place. But looking back on this replay here, you can see what an incredible overtake that was, literally going in between Jägermeister and the wall. That could have been disastrous. I think he was trying to pull off something he was trying to do last time, where unfortunately in that previous track on San Francisco, we saw that wreck. But here, it worked perfectly. And you can see Jägermeister a bit surprised by what happened.
He certainly was. I think he only had double nitro at the time while going over the next jump. I don't think he was expecting anything like that at all in the slightest. And for Joe, it looks like he did have a few strats up his sleeve. But when those opportunities come, you just have to take it, especially if you're from behind. If you're in front, then it's understandable just to continue playing it cool and just playing your game as you would do in a time trial. So it's one apiece here in the second series. Both myself and Marv did say that this is definitely one of the matches to watch in the EU versus NA scene, both on the Android platform as well, so in their respective regions. But of course, that doesn't matter anymore with the cross-platform here. And with Jägermeister now, he's going to have to regroup, rethink, and decide exactly how he's going to go about this. Because you've got to remember that Jägermeister had the inside lane. He's going to have to lead straight away. And Joe was well aware of the situation. And as soon as he grabbed that lead, for a good 15 seconds towards the end of that first lap, his body blocking was extremely good, extremely well performed, extremely well executed as well. And it gave him a little bit of boost in terms of speed, just to keep him at bay and keep his opponent back. but it's going to be a little bit different on this next one.
Yeah, and we mentioned earlier this sort of not only clash of playstyles between Joe and Jägermeister, but also the clash of personalities. And I think that's what we're seeing here, a little bit of adaptation from Elite Joe, obviously from previous instances, trying to be a bit more cautious, a bit more careful, not as explosive as we've seen previously. But now Jägermeister, we've known he is such a concise, precise driver. I think, honestly, in this third track here, we're going to have to see him pull out something like a very risky maneuver, something he's not used to. We see him win a lot of races just purely off of skill alone, whereas Joe is really well known for going for those crazy plays like we've seen in that second track there. So I think Jägermeister is going to try and maybe, you know, bring out a couple of more jumps, a little more airtime tricks that maybe Joe isn't quite ready for, because honestly, if Joe continues trying to take these risks and if he's successful, he's going to take this third track.
And you saw the code there, ladies and gentlemen. If you want to try and grab yourself some free goodies, free items there, make sure you head on to Asphalt and put that code in to redeem some crazy stuff. And sadly for us, we can't do it right now as we speak, but hopefully we'll get time some other time, maybe afterwards. I don't know. It depends how long those codes last for. But we'll go into our third and final track here in this second quarterfinal between Elite Joe and Jägermeister. Who's going to take it? It's going to be anyone's guess here. It's already been quite close, but Elite Joe did get a bit more airtime. He's going to get a bit more nitro to go with it. He's that perfect nitro, but Jägermeister just trailing behind. Both of them is that shockwave over that last jump.
Both these players forming a single file line, taking extremely similar routes. We see a bit of a difference here on the lines they take. On the inside, Jägermeister doing a quick overtake. He's going to try and force Elite Joe onto the backside here as he overtakes again on the outside. What an incredible showcase of Jägermeister, just how important racing lines are in Asphalt Legends Unite. But as we can see, they're crossing the straightaway right now, going to max speed in the air. And it looks like Jägermeister with so much more confidence, so much more vigor, and just the amount of shockwave he's had meant that he's gotten up to that top speed a lot quicker than Elite Joe here, as he's taken a bit of a backseat here, maybe a half-second difference here as we come onto the 360 turn in a couple of seconds here. Jägermeister, looks like he's going for that perfect nitro, getting around that corner, doing a great job conserving nitro, but also making sure he uses it in the air. But we're soon going to get onto the second lap, where Jägermeister has kept this lead very nicely here, and Elite Joe, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of opportunities for him to maybe do some risky maneuver. We've seen on that bridge there is one very specific maneuver I've only seen pulled off one time before, and it has only worked one time, but I don't know if Elite Joe is going to be able to do that. That is going to be one of the riskiest things.
It's kind of like Auckland a little bit, where it's very little room to try and close the gap with some of these tricks and jumps, but to see what he could do here, but that was a huge risk from Joe. He had to take it, but sadly for him, that's going to cost him dearly, at least a few more seconds added to the tally, but that is going to be it. It looks like Jägermeister will be going through into the semi-final against Future Flash unless he makes two crazy accidents, which is very, very highly unlikely. But for Elite Joe, he had to do something. He had to make something work in order to close that gap, but it just wasn't to be. But for Jägermeister, going to be smooth sailing here. Not really too long to go, using that shockwave over the bridge. And now just going to make sure to secure this victory. But fair play to Joe. He had to make those risks work, but it just wasn't going to happen. He's just gone off the track again. But yeah, it is what it is, I'm afraid. It is what it is. As Jägermeister going to finish things off 2-1 in the series. He'll be facing Future Flash in the semi-finals later on. But my goodness, what a doozy of a series. Exactly what we expected. Incredible stuff from Jägermeister. Commiserations to Joe.
There we go. Risk versus reward. And unfortunately, Elite Joe didn't pan out quite for him. But massive respect for trying to bring out some of the craziest maneuvers, trying to wall ride the entire railing alongside Cairo. That is one of the rarest maneuvers to try and pull off in Asphalt Legends Unite. We've seen it done before, and it works very well. But unfortunately, it just wasn't maybe his lucky day for Elite Joe, and Jägermeister takes the win.
Want to meet any hopes? I'm sorry, Marth is gone, but you've still got a couple more left remaining. Or you've got one left remaining, actually. But still got Pickle. He'll be in the other quarterfinal later on, the last quarterfinal, I believe, against Sheeta. We'll have to see how that goes. But Jägermeister, we expected a slight favourite going into this matchup against Elite Joe. We know Elite Joe's accolades with the championship victories he had over in the NA scene, but you know, he's not going to be massively happy about his performance, but he knows that it's all he could do, and you can see Jägermeister just saying, yeah, we understand that you're very limited to what you can do to try and close that gap, but it is what it is, I'm afraid. Jägermeister goes through.
I mean, look, what I will say is taking a map off Jägermeister is nothing to scoff at. I mean, he is such a great driver, so
I am here.
I think that was a really great thing.
In your mother tongue, gratulacje. Dziękuję. I got to flex with the bilingual skills. You came in here with quite the track record. A lot of third-place finishes, a lot of second-place finishes, a lot of first place as well. There's a lot of pressure on you. How do you handle that situation? Are you relaxed or?
I'm definitely not relaxed because I'm never used to playing in the highest end competitions. So despite playing so many times, there's always a stress factor, but in a way it also helps you push, but it's also very easy to just completely lose it. So it's just random, really.
How confident after this win are you to take home the entire thing?
I'm just gonna say one thing. Future Flash, I'm coming for you, my friend.
I know for a fact that we have a lot of Polish guys in the production crew. Anything you want to say to your Polish fans in here?
To all my Polish fans, dziękuję bardzo za dodawanie mi sił. Mam nadzieję, że uda mi się to wszystko wygrać.
I wish you all the best. Thank you, Jägermeister, and we give it back to the desk.
Fighting words from Jägermeister, and he's ready for Future Flash in those semi-finals, and that is going to be a really, really entertaining match, but we'll say that as well. US Midwest, it lived up to all of the hype that you guys were giving it. It was a really, really solid one. Sad to see that last race, though, really didn't go Elite Joe's way. I really wished it was a little bit closer.
Yeah, with that last track, you're very limited to what you can do to close the gap, and we saw a clear example of it. Elite Joe had to really do some high expectations with some of the stuff he needed to pull off in order to do it, but he can't just sit there and just rely on Jägermeister to, you know, have an accident along the way, because that's not going to be his forte. He's a very consistent driver, and he's been known for having some very good refinements and have a polished refinements overall. But with Jägermeister now against Flash, these are the two players who've been almost dominating their platforms over in the EU region MENA, and now finally we get to see them both face up against each other.
That is going to be one of the most exciting matchups in Asphalt Legends Unite history. Like you mentioned, both of these players have extremely storied careers, so to see which one is actually the favorite or which one actually will take this victory is going to be something very exciting to see.
And that's the thing as well, they literally say lightning doesn't strike the same place twice, but Jäger literally beat Joe 2-1 back in the Countach series as well, so that is literally the exact same thing, and it's repeated on him again. Jäger maybe just that little tier above him, but it is sad to see these players go home so early, but as we keep on saying, they won't be going home empty-handed. They'll take home $500, and obviously all the experience of Gamescom, because that's a big thing, you know, future events and stuff as well. Getting this experience under your belt is always massive.
Yeah, it's very important, even if you've not been on stage that much, even to get on a stage for the first time, you should always prioritize the experience you've gained and then basically develop it afterwards. But it seems to be that Jägermeister just chilling at the moment. He said he's very stressed, but he seems quite clean cut from what I saw on stage. But maybe his emotions mentally is a little bit different from what he's showing physically. But for CEST versus Dark Hyper, one of Jägermeister's biggest rivals will be coming up next. And another matchup you were talking about earlier, Marv, of Pickle versus Sheeta, something we're going to hopefully witness later on. But at the same time, you know, from the NA, the last hope of North America for you, you'll be maybe cheering on the forefront.
Took the words right out of my mouth. NA's last hope, the Pickle. I mean, great in North America, great in North American cuisine as well. But Pickle is going to have to show his dominance in North America and bring that over to the EU region, bring it over to the worldwide stage of Asphalt Legends Unite.
And that's the thing, you've gone from praying for a North America final to now just like, someone please get out of the quarterfinals, just get further. We need some NA representation a bit further on. It's going to be Shukti versus Dark Hyper up next in quarterfinals number 3. Another really, really big matchup between these two players.
Yes, CEST has been known for playing dirty sometimes. He's very, very good at body blocking. We've seen it time and time again. That's why when I saw Elite Joe doing it to Jägermeister's probably thinking, oh, I'm getting a, you know, deja vu here. I've kind of witnessed this quite a few times before back in my own region, and it's obviously quite experienced for it. And with Dark Hyper, we haven't seen him since Asphalt series last year, and C is going to try and improve his placement from 3rd.
Yeah, and this is going to be an interesting matchup. Here we see the track list. Osaka coming right out of the gate. This is one of the twistiest, most complicated tracks in the game, but with the Apollo IE and the Apollo Evo having great handling, these players are going to have as much opportunity as possible to really go through and sort of break this track down bit by bit, road by road, and really take the car's advantage. And one of the things that I wanted to mention is this history of matchup between Sukti and Dark Hyper. They both faced each other in the Countach and Essenza challenges, where Dark Hyper won both both of those series, claiming first place, beating Sukti along the way. So there is definitely some history between these players.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely huge. Sukti's going to be wanting that revenge. After being beaten by them twice, you're kind of always going to want to come back stronger, learn from your mistakes, and try get the win regardless. And, you know, they're both really accomplished players. So no matter who goes out here, it's going to be pretty devastating. But as you say, you know, one of them's definitely got a bit of an upper hand.
Yeah, he certainly does. And I think he's well aware of it, of course. And being on a big stage is going to be a little bit different. Obviously, more prize money. And of course, with being a global champion, it's going to be a big thing for not just both his players, but every single player competing in this competition. And yeah, for Suchti, we know what his style is. He likes to play dirty sometimes, likes to body block a lot. We've seen it time and time again in the EU region. We know Jägermeister is very, very familiar with it in the Android scene. The question is how are things going to go this time around. It could be a little bit different. Of course, it might be a clash of styles with Dark Hyper. And like I said, he's got a huge accolade to his performance over the last couple of years.
Yeah, so not only do these players have storied matchup histories between them, but they also have, at least with Dark Hyper, he has previous tournament experience, very recent tournament experience in front of a crowd, where Sukti doesn't really have that advantage. So even though we'll see that clash of playstyles, I think, well, here we go. We're actually going to see it right now with the first race. Dark Hyper versus Sukti here on Osaka. Sukti trying to take advantage of that top speed, going along that left side there, getting into that victory lane. Wow, what a great job by Sukti to do that overtake, trying to take a bit more of a complicated route with that airtime, and it worked out perfectly.
And that huge clash from Sukti got a massive advantage in that first lap around that second bend. And now let's see if Sukti can maintain this lead. And it looks like he is at the moment, but Dark Hyper is just directly behind him. It's closed the gap massively. He was about a second to a second and a half, and Dark Hyper within just 10 seconds just made it look like it's nothing at the moment, with both players using that shockwave to get around this next corner. And we'll have to see what Dark Hyper can do now. He's actually trailed behind again now by about a second to a second and a half, to saving that nitro to go into the perfect to get around this next corner. And now this is where you want to collect all the nitro as much as possible around all these bends as you get around this next corner during this first lap.
Yeah, there we go. Sukti with the first lap victory. So we're going to go on to the second lap and see if he can maintain this lead. But what we saw earlier was Sukti bouncing back and forth between the barriers on that straightaway before the hairpin corner. So I was a little bit cautious. I was a little worried to see if he was about to wreck, but thankfully he didn't. But Dark Hyper on that back pedal here is going to have to try and make up something and maybe pull up some sort of airspeed trick that we haven't seen before in Osaka, because this track, unfortunately, can be a little bit flat for these players. Sometimes you won't see as many airtime or airspeed tricks as you would see in other tracks, like the US Midwest we saw in that previous matchup. But here in this hairpin corner, that is going to make it break this corner. How is Dark Hyper going to take it? He has enough nitro for shockwave, so does Sukti, so they both come out relatively well, relatively easily up to their top speed. But this gap is closing between Sukti and Dark Hyper coming onto the chicane. Will Dark Hyper use nitro? He won't. He won't use shockwave. That's going to be a massive hurt for the top speed. Sukti blasting up into the air, but looks like that trajectory wasn't really that great. So onto the jumps here, these bunny hops here, it looks like Sukti is going to have a very, very small amount of margin to play with. Dark Hyper trying to use that nitro, not going for that 360, and that might not pan out very well. Over across the bridge, will they? Oh no, there we go. I was so close. I was fumbling my words because I wasn't sure exactly how that was going to happen, but Sukti just barely pulling out that victory.
You can see that he was trying to shockwave over him to at least accomplish or at least gain some leads and just to at least take him down before the finish line. But I respect that. I respect his strategy, what he was trying to do. He was more aiming for top speed rather than nitro, which is why he actually stopped with his 360s a little bit earlier on, and then having that shockwave to try and overtake, because the difference is he could overtake by jumping over him, or sorry, jumping on top of him, but that seemed to be the case, but sadly he wasn't able to succeed. But like I said, I respect that, especially right at the very end. It was just basically a last-ditch effort, a last resort. But even then, though, I did feel like Dark Hyper was the better racer in terms of closing that gap and be able to perform the straighter lines and be the better racer. But you can see Suchti just doing everything I mentioned in that first lap. I saw body blocking, I saw him really having no fear to take him off that second jump in the first lap. So everything I expected and more. But this is the bit where he was trying to get across over him, but sadly it wasn't to be. Suchti relieved, I think, more than happy. I think there's probably the right phrase for it. And as you can see, doing it in 2 minutes and 11.465. Not too shabby at all.
Yeah, great racing by Sukti, but more incredible was the blocking that he was doing to prevent Dark Hyper from catching up. So this is going to be one of the first times that he has the advantage in this series against Dark Hyper. These matchups before have usually played out in favor of Dark Hyper, winning in that Essenza challenge and that Kuntas challenge both before. So Dark Hyper is going to be a little bit worried, like, uh-oh, does Sukti have my number this time around? Because it's always been on the other foot previously. So that's going to be something that Sukti is going to have in mind, Dark Hyper is going to have in mind. So maybe we'll see a bit of a change of playstyle from Dark Hyper, maybe try and match that aggression of Sukti. But there you can see the beautiful Apollo IE in all of its glory. It is one of the most beautiful looking cars, best styling in my opinion. But I think what's even more incredible is this action we're going to have here on Shanghai with the Apollo Evo switching cars real quick here. Dark Hyper going to try and save it for that shockwave, but as he saw Sukti use that nitro, he figured he would do the same thing. And as a result, Dark Hyper clashing with Sukti, just barely scratching out that lead, shoving Sukti into that traffic car, and that's going to cost him a lot of time.
Certainly did cost him a lot of speed and time there. Sadly for him, he did have the inside lane as well, but of course, as you saw, Dark Hyper had the higher had the more air times, so it means he had more nitro to then continue his path and to get over across him, but at least it didn't wreck him completely. It's going to keep him in for now, but let's see what Dark Hyper can do. I did feel like there was a lot of indicators and signs that Dark Hyper was the better racer, or not the cleaner racer, but with the better lines especially, more of a perfectionist with that previous track. But let's see what Suchi can do now that he can't body block, but we may see him play a little bit dirty as we get towards the end to try and at least corner him off and get into the inside of one of his bends.
Both these players using that floaty drift technique to try and get every little last mile per hour out of that corner, but it looked like Dark Hyper had a bit more nitro. We saw previously that perfect nitro really saved Sukti here on that jump, and he sort of hit the wall. That's going to prevent another perfect nitro in 10 or so seconds here. Could that mean the difference while they go into airtime here? It looks like Sukti doesn't have too much nitro. As a result, Dark Hyper continuously extending this lead, maybe hitting the wall there a little bit so it won't get extended that much, but we saw Shockwave there coming out from Dark Hyper. That's going to give him a little bit more speed in this air here. But as we go on to this large section here with this big corner, how are they both going to take it? Both going for a little bit of that small drift, but mainly taking with perfect nitro, saving up for Shockwave for this jump. Are they going to take the different routes? No, they'll both go for that floaty drift on the inside line. Sometimes, depending on the car, you'll see these players try and take different routes. You'll go through that other place that gives you more top speed, but because these cars are more handling focused, that's the route that they'll take. Both of them not going for the floaty for this corner. They're using perfect nitro to negate that rough terrain speed loss. Both of them now using floaty to go into this next corner. And Dark Hyper, I'm just trying to speak over how concise and precise this driver is. Really, we didn't see too much from Suti here in this second lap.
It's very scary. He's a scary driver indeed. And as you mentioned, the Apollo IE is known to having slightly better handling and nitro, and has definitely made its worth. There we have it. So it looks like Dark Hyper will be able to take that just over a second and a half. And we have a tied game once again. No clean sweeps here apart from the first series. We'll let Future flash off with that one, but it definitely could have been considering that first track earlier on. But you can see now Dark Hyper feeling himself a little bit. He's probably chuffed now, but at least can try to equalize the scoreline. But yeah, you saw there, after that first initial jump, it was just smooth sailing. And let's be honest though, we could see that Suchti wasn't making it easy for him.
Oh, there we go. We saw Dark Hyper maybe bringing out a little bit of his jams to try and cool himself off, but that was one of the most defining moments of the race here. You could see Sukti getting shoved into that car there on the side, and that lost him so much speed. There you go, the disappointment. And usually that's what we've seen Sukti do to other players, whereas this time it's the complete opposite.
He's on the other foot.
And, yeah, absolutely. And that was really funny to watch, sort of a taste of his own medicine, if you will. But this time around, now that Dark Hyper has this victory, he puts himself in the situation to take against the... Oh man, I don't want to say this again, but will he pull out a 2-1 against Sukti here, just like previous series? This is going to be a repeat, possibly.
It could. Same scoreline, different setting. That's what it's going to be here. And then we're going to find out what Suchti can do now to respond. And will he be able to? There's absolutely no reason why he couldn't. It was... Sadly for Suchti, it was two big moments which obviously cost him. The first one where it didn't have as much airtime and the 360 went as fast in order to get the required nitro to maintain the lead. And of course, let's be honest, that car.
Yeah, that was a defining moment.
That was the defining moment.
That was so funny to watch him get launched into the air like that. That was just so unfortunate. You saw the disappointment on Suki's face there after that happened. Yes, he had the opportunity to catch up afterward if he really tried some different risks, some different things like that. Like previously, Joe was trying to do something like that when he was on the back pedal against Jägermeister. But with those types of risky maneuvers, sometimes they just don't work out. So typically, players will want to try and play a bit more cautious. But here we go on Rome. Another track with a lot of potential for airspeed tricks. We'll see Dark Hyper taking an early victory or an early lead here as we go onto this first straightaway. Taking the inside line, normally you go around the other way, and that's exactly what Suki has done. He's going to get a ton of more airtime here. I'm not sure why Dark Hyper made that decision, but we're going to see them neck and neck. You can see it in the minimap. They're literally right on top of each other. Suki taking that inside line, and that airtime worked out wonders for him. He's taking the early lead here in this first lap.
Huge play coming up from 60. Shocked that he actually took that other route, but do you know what? We'll have to see if he'll be able to take that route in that second lap. And Dark Hyper with that double nitro now, just trailing behind him with the single just to see what he can do going around this next bend. Perfect's going to come out a little bit earlier than 60, and you can see he's doing that to potentially get onto the inside, but both players with that shockwave onto the next jump. But now, how is he going to try and pull up in the inside? We've seen signs that he can be the slightly better driver in terms of lines, and he looks like he might be able to overtake him, and yes, he manages to. But let's see which route he's going to take going to the second lap in comparison.
Dark Hyper doing a great job getting that airtime there on that hill. We saw Suki attempt to do the exact same thing, but he didn't have shockwave, so he wasn't able to take advantage of it. So there we go, Suki now on the back pedal, reversing what has happened on that first lap. Dark Hyper taking another early lead here in the beginning of the lap. Will he change his route? He will. He's going to go for that barrel roll, try and get that airtime, do exactly what Suki's done in the previous lap, and as a result, he's going to fly across these buildings here in the air with that airtime shockwave as well. So now Suki is going to be a little bit confused. He's going to be like, no, that was my move. That was what I was going to try and get ahead. But unfortunately, Dark Hyper adapted his strategy in the second lap, and as a result, keeping this lead, doing a really great job, keeping those clean lines, making sure that Suki can't do much about it.
Suki is still playing extremely well. He's keeping the gap as close as possible. He's not at least letting it decrease in any way, shape or form, but using that perfect nitro now to try and shockwave around the inside. He's still got a small window of opportunity here. We've only got a few bends left remaining as he's trying to get across and use that shockwave to get that straighter line, but will he be able to? Will he get any other tricks or the trade in order to gain more? But use that perfect nitro is not going to help or do itself justice, I'm afraid, as we've only got one last bend left remaining before they finish things off. But Dark Hyper just maintaining this lead the entire time. Sushi did great in order to try and claw back using that different route, but Dark Hyper said, no, I'm going to take the route this time. I'm going to get all the nitro possible, and it's going to be history repeating itself as he takes the victory 2-1, as we'll be seeing him later on in the semi-finals.
Oh, I feel so bad for Suki right now. Literally history repeating itself for the third time in a row with these two players matching up against each other, and that must feel so disappointing. Yeah, you could see the disappointment on Suki's face. He had that option. He had that window of opportunity taking that second race, but unfortunately, Dark Hyper knew exactly what he had to do. And I feel like after that first race that Suki won, Dark Hyper was sort of more used to it.
Yeah, just one of those things, sadly. But it was a great matchup overall. Great from both his players. Sadly for 60, we won't be seeing him again. But I'm sure it won't be his last event. We'll be witnessing him in another Snapdragon Pro Series Open Finals, I'm sure. As we've got an interview with Dark Hyper.
A hug there. Really good sportsmanship shown here. But that was a tough battle, right?
Yeah, it was a tough battle. Completely tough battle. I didn't expect to be 1-1 match situation. So yeah, very hard battle between my teammate, because he's my teammate. And yeah, no more words to say. An amazing race, an amazing event.
You're going to still be friends after this, right?
Yeah, we're still friends,
So you were at the Asphalt Series in 2023 in the finals. Do you think that since then you're a better player now? Do you think you've got what it takes to go all the way here?
Yeah, I'm a little less nervous than the last situation, so maybe that's a good thing. So yeah, maybe I'm a better player.
What do you feel like when you're playing in front of a live crowd? Do you enjoy it more? Do you find that the pressure makes you play better, or is it something that you have to overcome every time?
Well, not at all, because the pressure on me is so high. So I was shaking a bit in the second lap on the last map. So it is what it is. I don't know what more to say, because I'm not an English speaker, but I try.
Amazing. Congratulations on the first win there. And best of luck with the rest of the tournament. We've got plenty more series and races coming your way very shortly. We're just going to go to a break and we'll be back very soon.
The Snapdragon Pro Series is brought to you by Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Monster Energy, and DHL.
Victory in quarterfinal number 3 then for Dark Hyper. What a performance that was as well. So close. And as he said, he didn't expect it to go all the way, and I think that's a huge thing for him as well, how confident he was going into it. We're going to take a quick look at the bracket, update you guys on what's happened just before if you are only just tuning in. You've missed some stuff. Future Flash came out strong. The favourite of the tournament did defeat Cincinnati in a quick 2-0. And then from there, it's been close games, Lethal.
It certainly has been indeed. Jägermeister Elite Joe, that was just a feat in itself. But even though Dark Hyper wasn't expected to be so close, it shows how much improvement that at.CEST has made over the course of the last year.
Absolutely, and it also shows you how much that stage experience is really a factor for Dark Hyper. So I think that really helped him in that series.
Yeah, and as well, Shooty, you know, in front of his home crowd, being German as well, it's quite sad to see him go. I'm sure the guys in Cologne at Gamescom would have really loved to see him go a bit further to cheer on with that German spirit that we all know so well. But we're going on to quarterfinal number 4. It's going to be Pickle, and it's going to be Sheeta, NA's last hope, Marth.
NA's last hope. I mean, honestly, we'll have to see how this pans out. I mean, for me, Pickle's definitely the favorite of this matchup. We haven't seen too much of Sheeta in the past couple of years in terms of final appearances, but Pickle, on the other hand, has been such a consistent top 3 finisher in NA. So I'm really looking at him to try and bring it home for NA.
Yeah, that's the thing. Like you said, he's one of NA's stable guys. So that's what we really need to be looking out for, and we're heading in, so take it away.
Yeah, no mucking around there, Trav, as we're going straight on in with Pickle versus Sheeta. Like you said before, we haven't seen a lot of Sheeta, but Pickle, we always see him in NA have a podium finish every single time without fail. His rival Elite Joe has been knocked out, so he's the last NA representative in order to try and make something work here in this Global Finals on the Snapdragon Pro Series for Asphalt 9 Unite. It's Sheeta now still just maintaining that lead with the Shockwave as well. Pickle's just trying to get a little bit more on the inside with the Shockwave as well over that jump, with both players initiating that perfectly. And it looks like Pickle is trying to close the gap as much as he can, but you can see that Sheeta is performing equally as well in the front line.
Yeah, there we go with Buenos Aires. That first lap has already happened. This is one of the shorter tracks we have here in Asphalt Legends Unite, so every single corner has to be absolutely precise. Pickle on the back foot here going into the second lap. That's going to be a very difficult position to try and get out of, but Sheeta doing a great job using as much nitro as possible in that home stretch, doing a great job with that airtime as well. This corner is going to be very immaculate for both of these players. It's going to be very important, and they both take it really well, but Pickle going on that outside a little bit, maybe fluffing the lines just tiny bit, and as a result, Sheeta's still going to extend that victory just a little bit, trying to go on that inside into that wall right there. This is very close. They're literally neck and neck. Sheeta not quite getting that jump. That's going to make or break it. I think Pickle just pulled off the overtake. What an amazing job.
Oh, it looks like he's going to that one jumpy miss. It's going to absolutely cost him here. Like you said, this is one of the shorter tracks, and that is going to be it. Sadly for Sheeta, he had the lead for 90% of that track, but it looks like Pickle will be coming out on top, and it was his saving grace. Normally, with most of these players, they're not really the kind of players where they expect their opponents to make a mistake or have an accident, etc. Normally they're the ones who feel like they need to be creating those risks in order to make it through and to get into the front stages before the finish line. But instead, for Sheeta, that one missed jump, we've seen it time and time again. We saw Flash do it earlier, which almost cost him, but was still able to win that first track earlier on in that first quarterfinal. But for Pickle, it looks like it works in his favor. There is hope for NA.
Yeah, I mean, NA hope still going on here, but I think that was a really interesting situation there between Sheeta and Pickle. I think what happened was you saw a little bit of hesitation with Sheeta. I'm not sure if there was just way too much respect going on there, trying to not bump into Pickle going onto that ramp, but as a result, Pickle takes advantage of that and secures that victory. I mean, Sheeta was playing so precisely throughout that entire track. I mean, they had the victory in the palm of their hands, and it was just that little bit of respect. Maybe he did have that little bit of the outside line, didn't want to get the, maybe he had a little bit of a weird angle going into that ramp, and Pickle knew that he didn't have that problem. But with Sheeta, you see a lot of respect coming out from a lot of these players trying to not bump into each other, and I definitely think that played a little bit of a part of it, and just missing the jump as well. And as a result, Pickle flying high, soaring into the lead there on that second last 10% of the race, and that is what made it.
There was a few moments from Sheeta which I was kind of debating and also at the same time was a little bit skeptical of. There was a few missed nitro canisters. There was Pickle where he was actually wall riding a little bit longer in comparison to gain that nitro required to try and overtake him. But even if he didn't and played the same way, that one missed jump, it just was the one that's going to massively cost him, and it did. And remember, folks, at home, it is a single in best of 3. So, of course, if Pickle wins this next track, he will be going through into the semi-finals against Dark Hyper, which is one player it's for a lot of people will ride the struggle bus against, which is perfectly understandable. But for Sheeta, he needs to create that reverse sweep. Will he do it? Let's find out. As we start from Pickle's perspective, use that nitro very early, both using that 360 over that low jump, but it looks like they're both going to be okay, and using that perfect nitro now to get around this next corner. But Sheeta got a little bit more speed at the moment in comparison to Pickle, but it looks like he's able to drive away without too much issue here. And it looks like as well Pickle has extended his lead by a few micros of a second.
Yeah, Sheeta doing a bunch of wall bumping there in the beginning. I mean, that chicane is always very, very difficult to go through. But with the Apollo Evo, I would have figured it was a bit easier, the Apollo IE. But looks like Pickle took advantage of that handling really well, where Sheeta unfortunately just hit a couple of those corners. And as a result, they have an extended lead here, trying to go onto that reverse barrel, doing a great job going over the beautiful Golden Gate Bridge. Sheeta is not going to catch up too much, but not really too far behind as well. So this is definitely still super recoverable. I mean, we saw in that last track going the reverse way where Pickle was on the back pedal for that whole first and second lap up until that very end. So coming onto this last bend here, going into the second lap, Pickle definitely has to be scared of what's in their rear view mirror, because Sheeta is not playing around.
Yeah, this is one of very few tracks where you can close the gap with the jumps required in order to try and close it, but with Pickle at the moment, he's just fine lining smoothly here as he's going across. It may seem playing a little bit safer towards the end, considering he realizes how much of a gap there is between the two, but at this point in time, we'll have to find out. There wasn't really much time left for Sheeta to try and close this, but as long as Pickle plays it safe and secure, he should be fine. But you can see Sheeta doing everything he can in order to use that shockwave to go for that jump. Now, use that double nitro, almost mislanded that, but looks like he is going to be okay. With Pickle now still at least a second ahead, probably going to shockwave over his next jump, not going to 360 or any of that shenanigans, just going to play it safe. May try and go over both jumps, but looks like he's just going to go over the one and go over this straight jump here as well. But no escapades, no 360s here, but the train is not really going to do him any favors either. It's going to put him a few more tenths of a second, and on top of that, Pickle has the nitro required to end this as he goes to the finish line, and that is going to be Pickle with a smooth sailing 2-0 victory here, as we'll be seeing him against Dark Hyper later on.
Smooth, crisp flavor from Pickle. Great racing by both players. It was just in between those small margins between those two races, especially in that first Buenos Aires match. I was honestly very surprised about that outcome, but great job by Pickle to not let it fluster him, you know, not really getting too overly excited going into that second track, taking advantage of all of the airtime that San Francisco has to offer, and in the home NA soil as well.
This is it, mate. This is it. Pickle, I did feel like he performed as the better driver in a lot of ways. There was a lot of indicators in that first track. Sadly for Sheeta, see the pressure got to him in that second lap, but it is what it is for him. I'm afraid he'll be bailing out, but will not be walking home empty-handed. He will be guaranteed that $500 for the qualifying and making it into the top 8 here. So, but you got to remember, you know, commiseration to Sheeta, every single one of these players making it here is just a feat in itself with the amount of hours invested with the time trials in order to make it to this stage. And Sheeta we haven't seen a lot of, so still might be in that de-rusting kind of phase. But for Pickle though, we'll be seeing a lot more of him later on, as we'll be against Dark Hyper in the semi-finals later on. The problem is now, though, with the next matchup, it's going to be quite an interesting one, because we've still got both the iOS and Android loggerheads, the dominant forces in the EU region between Future Flash and Jägermeister. It's going to be some scary material coming out in that first semi-final.
Yeah, with this bracket, we've seen pretty much how it's played out like we would have expected, so that can be a good and a bad thing. You know, we thought, oh, Future Flash is going to take it against Cincinnati. Had a little bit of hopes for Cincinnati in that first one, but unfortunately for him, Future Flash just did what he always does and beats everyone, I guess. But yeah, the way that this bracket is progressing is going to be pretty darn good.
Certainly will be indeed, and it's just crazy to see Future Flash now witnessing what he'll come up in the next semi-final. I kind of feel like with Future Flash, the only way to take him down is at the early stages.
Yep. I definitely agree. And here we can see a couple of bit of replays here from San Francisco, and Sheeta going again with those bumps. I think that's what really made it or break it with this one. Whereas with the Buenos Aires track, it was that one ramp at the very, very tail end of the track. But with this one, it was just a bit of sloppy driving. Kind of, you could see from both players there running into that traffic car. But unfortunately for Sheeta, that wasn't quite enough to net him that victory. But for Pickle, concise driving otherwise, and very, very great job by him. And again, I think that was something that we saw with that Buenos Aires track, was that one small little barrel roll.
Happens, mate. It happens.
It really does. Blink and you miss it. That was over so fast. That Buenos Aires track really is such a short one, so unforgiving as well. A really nice late overtake though from Pickle in there as well. You know, around about that 90% mark, it didn't leave any room for a comeback. So a little bit disappointing. We're going to have to be sending him home, but obviously it's really, really good for Pickle to be heading on to these semi-finals. The NA dream still alive. Make sure to follow us on socials as well down below. ESL Mobile on both X and Facebook, and ESL_Mobile on the Instagram to keep up with all Snapdragon Pro Series and Asphalt Legends Unite in the future. Really solid stuff going on there, some content, and make sure to join the Discord server as well if you want to enter some of these. This could be you this time in, you know, next year, whenever it might be. this could be you. You could be playing. Let's a little review of the bracket. We have now finished all quarterfinals. It's gone past so fast. Future Flash started off strong, taking that 2-0. Elite Joe then did fall to Jägermeister. Dark Hyper came in strong against Shooty and beat him 2-1. And then Pickle just so fast, Marth, beating Sheeta 2-0.
Yeah, I'm really quite glad with how this bracket turned out now, because we got the favorites now into the semifinals. But honestly, the Future Flash versus Jägermeister match, that is going to be the most exciting.
It certainly will be. It's the two players who've been very, very dominant in their own respective platforms and regions. And finally, thanks to Unite, we can finally see both these players go at it head-to-head to finally see who is going to be the more dominant force between the two.
I mean, that's why this is such a good event as well. And this could genuinely be the final, this next semi-final.
Absolutely.
Both these guys seem to just be dominant in their own fields. So it's going to be a really, really interesting matchup. And, you know, let's not forget now, you lose here, you're not just going home just yet, because we've still got that third, fourth playoff. It will be played off stream, so you guys will not be able to watch it, unfortunately. But there will be a little bit of a prize differential, so there's still so much to play for in that third, fourth. So they're not going to be dropping out, but obviously you still want to be getting those wins and heading on to the where the big cash lies, Lethal.
Yeah, sometimes it's not about the prize money for some of these players. It's all about being the first global champion here for Unite. It's going to be a huge accolade for them to add to their CV, especially Future Flash's CV with the repertoire of victories he's had in the past. But I think for these guys, it's very important for them on Unite to establish themselves as the biggest loggerheads, the biggest players here, and make the biggest impact as well on the circuit.
Absolutely. We are entering a whole new era of Asphalt where everyone is playing everyone, and that wasn't the case a couple of years ago. So taking a win here would be probably one of the most important things continuing on for the history of Asphalt Legends Unite.
I mean, that's the thing. You're getting your name right at the top of the history of Asphalt Legends Unite, and I'm sure it's going to be a long, long history as well, so it's definitely really nice to get your name down there early on. And, you know, even getting top 4 at an event like this, top 4 best players in the world, that's an achievement in itself. So these 4 players are really at the pinnacle of Asphalt Legends Unite, and that is a huge, huge thing for them as well. Obviously, it's sad to see the 4 we've already had to let go, because they're amazing players as well, and, you know, they're just getting a taste of what it's like to face off against other, or against the iOS and Android players, respectively.
Yeah, even seeing that Elite Joe Jägermeister matchup, it's a matchup we didn't want to see so early on. That's the kind of match you want to see in the semi-final, something a little bit spicy in order to, a bit of flavour to add to the tournament scene. But the fact that we saw it as the first quarter-final, or the second quarter-final rather, just shows the pedigree skill between every single one of these players who've made it here so far.
Yeah, the Jägermeister Future Flash matchup, that is a grand final type matchup for sure. I'm really looking forward to that one, because both these players, like you said, they've had their respective histories long throughout the previous Asphalt 9 iteration, but with Asphalt Legends Unite, you have to mark your history with those finals.
Yeah, well, I think we're going to be looking at some stuff for DHL right now. A little bit of a look what's going on in Gamescom at the moment. Let's catch up with Ian and Max.
Look at this guy. Cargo, all the way, lit up like a Christmas tree behind us here.
It's kind of hard not to look at him. It's kind of hard to ignore him. This big hunk of metal.
He is a big hunk of metal. Wait till you see, when he gets over here, Max, wait till you see the size of this dude.
It's not like we're tiny. He's just massive.
Yeah. 11 foot tall, and he is here for not just to show off, you know, his sheer size and handsomeness and charisma. He's also going to be giving away a very special parcel, because that is what DHL does. They're always on time.
Exactly. I'm going to do the whole thing in German as well for the German audience here in the venue. Also nochmal für euch, hier ist unser Cargo-Bot von DHL, und der ist natürlich nicht nur groß und leuchtet schön vor sich hin, sondern hat auch noch ein wunderbares Paket dabei. Und wir werden jetzt gleich mit seiner Hilfe jemanden aus eurer Runde aussuchen, der dieses wunderbare, da drüben seht ihr es schon, Merch-Paket seht. Ian, can you take a look inside the box and maybe tell us what's in there?
All right, so we've got all sorts of goodies here, courtesy of DHL, and one of our lucky members of the audience here will get their hands on this package. Before we do, Cargo, I heard that you can dance. Can you just dance right now? Is that something you can? I mean, your head. Here we go. Here we go. I'm getting out the way. Whoop, whoop, yeah. Guys, make some noise for Cargo. All right, this is important now. Max, we need Cargo to pick out a winner.
Cargo, can you use those DHL laser eyes you got and just point us into the direction of one lucky person? Maybe blind yourselves and pick at random one person.
We need to hear you, though. You need to make some noise.
Louder. Let's hear it for Cargo. Let's hear it for the package.
Who's going to win?
And Cargo's looking. And he found some. Oh! The little one right here. Cargo has picked, I was about to say a victim, a lucky one. The package is bigger than her. Love to see that.
Look at this.
Congratulations. Wie heißt du denn? Nika, dann viel Spaß mit deinem Paket. Hast du jemanden, der dir helfen kann, das tragen? Das ist ja schon ganz groß. Die Mama da vielleicht?
Here we go.
We're gonna get Nika's mom to help her out because this package is quite massive. Nika, viel Spaß mit deinem Paket. Vielleicht hast du ja ein paar Leute, denen du das verschenken kannst und ansonsten guckst du, was dir gefällt und das behältst du, okay? Cool. I just told her to just pick and choose whatever she likes and give the rest away to friends and family.
Amazing.
Make someone happy. The way the DHL people make us happy when they give us our
take
packages.
this box, you take that box. Thank you so much. Cargo, can I get a fist bump? Can I get a fist bump?
I want one as well.
Boom.
I'll take that.
I'll give you one.
Thank you.
All right, that's it from us down here with DHL Cargo Beast, as I like to call him. Let's get back into the Asphalt action with our casters.
Well, to be honest, I think the package was actually bigger than the girl who received it, to be honest with you.
Well, to be fair, you're a tall lad. You could probably fit in a costume. I've got no chance. I'm probably like half the size of it.
Maybe so, to be fair, but yeah, big thank you to DHL for the sponsorship of the Snapdragon Pro Series as well. But as you said, we're still getting back underway with the Asphalt Legends Unite. We're on to semi-final number 1, and Future Flash and Jägermeister return. Just before we went into that little break, we said this could well be the final.
Yeah, it should be, but it's not. But it's a semi-final. This is just a teaser before we go into the grand final. And for both these players, they've been absolutely dominant throughout the entirety of the Asphalt 9 scene, both in iOS and Android respectively. And for the first time, they will be able to come up against each other to see who is going to be at the tippity top going into that grand finals.
Yeah, here we go with the track list. Himalayas and Cairo making this very top speed-oriented track list here, but that's if we get to 3 maps. Jägermeister taking an early lead here on the Himalayas. Are they both going to go for the barrel roll? They will. Both of them doing it perfectly, but Jägermeister just with that extra little bit of speed in the beginning, and that is going to give him a lot of opportunity to extend this lead. But that early 360 was a little confusing for me. Usually you don't see players doing that, and as a result, Future Flash has slightly crept up, and you don't want to have Future Flash in your rear view mirror. Jägermeister must be shaking in his boots at that fact, but Jägermeister just doing a great job going through that chicane here, making sure they don't run into that ramp, into that truck there on the side. But Future Flash is doing everything that he can to keep up, going onto these jumps here, bouncing off the walls, and no! Oh, that's so unfortunate. Jägermeister hitting and clipping that last bit there, and as a result, Future Flash now has a superb lead.
Yeah, he was continuing to gain that nitro because he knew that with a player like Future Flash, you need to maintain it one way or another with those risks. But for Future Flash, he's going to be looking pretty at the moment with that shockwave of that previous jump, as we're now just heading towards the end of the first lap, going into the second. But for Future Flash, this is his for the taking. He knows that all he needs to do is just play it safe and secure, but not too safe because we know how great of a driver Jägermeister can be with his consistency across this track. But I want to see if Future Flash is still going to continue using the barrel rolls over these straight jumps. Not these ones, but over the next couple coming up shortly. But Future Flash isn't known for making these kind of mistakes. Will he be able to take this risk? We're not sure. But even if he doesn't at this stage, I don't think he has to worry too much. He's going to be at least a couple of seconds behind, in front rather. And Jägermeister, just you can see, just trying to do everything he can, wrecked himself once more. And that is going to be a guarantee first victory here for Future Flash in this first track of the semi-final.
Yeah, there we go. He's going to be up 2-1, no doubt about that. And what you really tend to see with these players is as soon as they know they have a guaranteed lead at the very minimum, they switch play styles on a dime. They'll go instantly into a safe mode where they try not to wreck, because that wreck is going to cause that other player to creep up and sort of get that victory again. So there we see Future Flash playing really, really cautiously, as you pointed out on that first lap. They're not going for those barrel rolls, making sure that he's playing as safe as possible, not getting into any risky maneuvers. But here we go, Future Flash going through the last corner, taking the first track here in our semi-final.
Jägermeister's going to be kicking himself a little bit, but in terms of track history, we don't really see many players actually falling short on that portion. Normally it's a failed barrel roll over one of those straight jumps, or maybe a clash as they go into the tunnel, but we don't really see anything like that too often. But you can see Jägermeister's like trying to explain what on earth happened, but Flash is like, okay, well, it's fine, I'm up 1-0, it's all good.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, that is, as you were mentioning, you usually don't see players wreck in that moment, so maybe it was just a clipping or something that was quite interesting that Jägermeister didn't account for, but they were just kind of discussing over there what really happened, because both these players have played this track thousands and thousands thousands of times. There's no way they could have accounted for something like that, because that's something you don't see very too often. That is one of the oldest tricks in the book, both literally and figuratively. That's something that players do all the time. I pull that one off all the time. So that was quite funny to see Jägermeister not able to get out cleanly. And you could see he's really, really surprised at that.
I would be as well. It's like I said, it's a rare moment. We don't see anyone clipping that portion of the tunnel when they're scraping against that part of the cliff in order to gain that extra nitro required to either perfect or shockwave across the next few jumps into the second lap. But it is what it is, I'm afraid. These things happen, and it's not a surprise that we get a rare occurrence on stage. But Flashdive is going to be pretty happy about that. He's going to have the lead now going into the semi-final. Remember, folks at home, this is a best of 3, so if Future Flash wins this next one, then we'll be seeing him later on in the grand final. But we can't get too ahead of ourselves as of yet, because we know that Jägermeister is an absolute fiend and a juggernaut in the Android scene here in the Snapdragon Pro Series Asphalt 9 Unite Global Finals. And in previous Open Finals, well, actually, speaking about that, it's funny that in previous Open Finals, normally one missed jump, it doesn't really cost them too much. They will actually still be able to maintain the lead and be able to secure it. But all these drivers leading up to this event are so refined, it just shows that one minor error with a jump can absolutely cost you dearly as we go into the second track.
And not only that, but also with this single elimination bracket instead of that double elimination bracket, that means that these players have to be super anxious and nervous the whole time, because like you said, one missed jump, one slipped opportunity, and that'll cost them everything. But reminding from our first race here, this is going to be Jägermeister taking an early lead in reflection of that first track there. But now the question is, can Future Flash pull off a victory while not, relying on a wreck from Jägermeister? Because I think after that first track, Jägermeister is going to approach this with a completely different playstyle. We know normally what he's used to is very concise racing, very clean lines, not going for any crazy risks or maneuvers, but that was a risk and a maneuver last time, and that's what cost him that track. So I think this time he's going to revert back to his old playstyle, which is not a bad thing whatsoever, because this guy is an absolute monster on Android. So here we see, going through that first track or that first lap, Future Flash trying so hard to take back that lead. He's going to try and get through it. Jägermeister blocking that approach, and Future Flash knocking on the door of Jägermeister. Yoo-hoo, anybody home? Jägermeister doing a great job blocking that. Oh my gosh, Future Flash trying everything he can to try and pry through that door of victory.
See Jägermeister take a leap out of 60's book there, and it's actually been able to benefit him quite a lot here. But what tricks of the trade is Future Flash going to perform? What risks or maneuvers is he going to make in order to try and get? But he's actually got a slightly higher speed. He could actually get up on the inside, but Jägermeister managed to shockwave just in time to refrain him from doing that at all in the slightest. Both players does have his shockwave, but you can see that Future Flash isn't actually going for the barrel roll, but Jägermeister actually does, which is a little bit of a peculiar moment. Jägermeister had the lead, and now he's been taken down. This was the one moment for him to tie things up, and it looks like Future Flash is going to be relieved and going to take this series 2-0 as we see him later on in the grand finals.
What a mishap from Jägermeister in both races. He had such a clean opportunity to take down Future Flash, but there we could see the elation and that relief. Future Flash knowing that, yes, he got that first place yet again, but Jägermeister must be feeling so disappointed in himself. I mean, he tried to approach that playstyle differently, try and get those risky maneuvers, but it just didn't work out for him.
Yeah, again, another maneuver which we don't expect them to crash upon, which was a little bit of shock to the system. But Jägermeister is going to be kicking himself a little bit, considering he had the lead both times on both tracks and threw it away towards the end both times. It's one of those situations, really. Of course, during the halfway of the first lap, that clip in the cave we don't really see too often. So it looks like the saving grace here for Future Flash. He's going to be extremely pleased, but he's got a little bit of luck on his side here, considering the circumstances, as we'll have an interview very shortly with Future Flash to see what he thinks from that last series.
GG's, by the way. You are the 3-time champion, and you're also the reigning champion right now. So you have a title to defend, but you're also going in here with 3 titles under your belt. Is that putting more pressure on you because you have to defend the title, or is that putting less pressure on you because, you already have 3 titles?
Actually, I have more than 3 titles, but the offline events, yes. As for that, yes, I do have the pressure to keep up my title and to put my legacy there and my name, and I do everything for that. It's not about the prize money or whatever, it's about the name, and that's what I'm fighting for.
You definitely made a name for yourself already, but you can make that even bigger. You are set for the grand final. Now it's time. I mean, it's not time to choose your opponent, but if you could choose, would you rather have to race against Pickle or Dark Hyper?
You mean which one is the easiest to beat?
This is what you said. I didn't say that.
Well, I guess Pickle is the easiest to beat, but both of them are really good. And let's see what happens. I cannot say exactly now which guy will be the best for me. I think Pickle will be the right option, I guess.
Well, let's see. Thumbs up pressed. Maybe you get Pickle, maybe you get Dark Hyper, whatever. We're going to have a banger of a final. Good luck to you then. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the finals, and we see you at the desk.
Well, that was the most friendly, unintentional trash talk I've ever seen in my entire life.
Definitely was.
You can be like that's the nicest thing I've ever heard anybody say when saying someone's a little bit easier to beat. But I think it was so rough there for Jägermeister. Like you've kind of got to be a bit risky when playing against someone like Future Flame. Like you can't play your normal race because of how good he is. I feel like the risks that he took were necessary. It's just a bit unfortunate that he just wrecked both times.
The cave clip we never see. It's very, very rare occurrence. I was quite shocked when we actually witnessed it. I was like, okay, it's something we haven't seen on broadcast in, well, a very long time, if not ever. And he was the one who actually managed to do it, which is why Jägermeister was kicking himself thinking, I play this thousands of hours, this track, and the one time I clip the cave, it happens now on stage, which is just, yeah, it's just one of those situations, sadly. But the other one was obviously a barrel roll, which he flipped upon, sadly. And the reason why he did that is because of the fact that with Future Flash, he knows that in terms of his track record, that he's an extremely tough opponent. You can't play safe against him at all in the slightest, and this is a good example of it. So Future Flash now going to the grand final without dropping a single track is definitely something to be wary about if you're a Dark Hyper or Pickle.
This is one of the most obvious brackets I've seen in a very long time. Future Flash on top 2-0, 2-0. We could see a 3-0 in the grand finals, but I mean, we'll have to wait and see for that.
Yeah, so let's not forget that Jägermeister's not yet out. He's going to be playing in that third, fourth match, so he's still got a bit to play for. Not out just yet. Fury Dark Hyper is up next, and he's going to be playing in a big, big match to decide who goes to the finals.
Yeah, Dark Hyper is probably the player I'm going to be looking at so far in terms of how he's performed in the previous matchup. He seemed to be the cleaner driver, great lines, great nitro management, and the risk he took was very well maintained, I think I like to say, so to speak. And then we saw quite a lot of signs from him why, Future Flash is probably making the assumption that he'll edge Pickle in a numerous amount of ways.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see these clash of playstyles as well. Pickle not really used to this global stage as well, so I'm curious to see if maybe a little bit of stage fright, even though he's already beaten in those quarterfinals. I think it's going to be interesting to see how they're approaching this, this sort of new stage environment.
Yeah, I say Pickle's well on his way. He's managed to get to the semi-finals already. He was just kind of like, he just edged his opponent late into the game. It wasn't like, he wasn't out front dominating, it was just so close. Trackless though, I'll let you guys walk over these ones because I've been liking Rome so far.
Yeah, with this track list, it's a very, very track list, a very varied track list. Well, we'll see some Rome, we'll see Greenland and Shanghai. Both those first two options there, both very different playstyles. Rome, you got the twisty action, a lot of airtime, whereas with Greenland, really, really awesome straightaways, lots of huge, big jumps. It's a very, I guess, cinematic type of track. But if we do get onto that third track with Shanghai, that is a very technical track. There's a lot of opportunities to players to showcase their talents.
And we didn't see Greenland last time, did we? I think we had the opportunity to see it in the first series on track number 3, but Flash was just like, nah, you can wait till later to see that.
I mean, as you said, there seems to be a lot of straightaways. Is that going to be, how are they going to go around that without having these cars with the highest top speed? It's more handling. Is there a way to handle that map specifically?
Yeah, with Greenland specifically, you'll see in those large straightaway sections, you'll see the icebergs floating back and forth. And if the players jump on the railings, you'll see that they get a lot of airtime. So with that trick, it's going to be interesting to see if these players either wreck on that area, because if you do a 360, it can often, the physics might not get you the best look as you want them to. So you'll sort of wreck on that that little edge there on the section. But it's going to be interesting to see how they take advantage of, like you said, the top speed focused tracks. You want to use as much airtime as possible. You want to use as many airspeed tricks as possible.
So you think that it's going to be worth the risk to go for these kind of rails and try get as much airtime as possible, or is it kind of, too much of a risk when this much is at stake?
I mean, we've seen players try and take risk previously in this tournament, and it hasn't worked out very well for them. But in this opportunity, because the track is just so long, you're going to have to take those risks to try and catch up. But we see here, going into the first track here, Dark Hyper with the early lead. Pickle trying to go for that 360 into that sort of floaty drift here as a result of going in that reverse direction, jumping over the buildings. Dark Hyper taking an early lead.
Certainly has done, and it looks like Dark Hyper going to try and maintain that for as much as possible to the very end if he can, but Pickle now using that double nitro to go over that previous jump to save it, to either use that perfect or use the shortcut later on, but decides to prioritise the perfect for now as Dark Hyper doing a phenomenal job just keeping these clean lines in. Now he's going to still got a full canister up his sleeve in order to get around these straight pins here and there, but it's got the perfect nitro again into the shockwave as he goes across this next jump. And this is quite a long track, mind you, so you got to remember that Dark Hyper's consistency needs to be at the highest caliber.
Yeah, absolutely. We saw Pickle both trying to get that airtime here, and it's going to work out a bit, but unfortunately, it just looks like Dark Hyper has such an extended lead here going into that second lap, approaching it there even, and getting that perfect nitro, collecting that nitro bottle, trying to get as much nitro for this perfect nitro section here. I've said nitro 4 times in the past 3 seconds. Onto the second lap here, Dark Hyper taking that lead and extending it. Pickle's going to have to really try and do some risky maneuver to catch up, because really, I don't think Dark Hyper is going to make many mistakes.
No, he's not. And even Pickle now, he wasn't even trying to barrel roll off that straight jump. He's just continuing on, playing it quite safe. But, of course, safe isn't the virtue here, as he's still got a little bit of time left, to at least another 30 seconds minimum in order to try and close this gap. But Dark Hyper is just not really letting up at all. He's just continuing to take these risks and not play it safe at all in the slice. He's into that perfect nitro, now picks up the next canister, now to double nitro around his bends. And of course, with the double nitro with the durability, there's no way you can use the perfect or shockwave because you won't be able to turn into the next portion of the track. But as you head slowly towards the very end now, Dark Hyper just collecting his canisters, going up this next jump, going perfect nitro into it. But I must say, extremely well played from Dark Hyper. Great performance from what we've been seeing so far. And Pickle is closed the gap a tiny bit, but nowhere near enough required.
No, this was incredible, incredible driving here from Dark Hyper. There were no wrecks, no crazy mistakes, no bumping, no blocking. I don't think there was really any contact whatsoever throughout this race, maybe except for that very beginning. But Dark Hyper just swept the floor with Pickle on this one, and as he crosses the finish line.
I guess Dark Hyper was so far ahead, there wasn't really any need or use really for body blocking, so to speak. So good stuff from Dark Hyper. Seems quite cool, calm and collected. He's taken that victory already. One more, we'll see him into the grand finals against Future Flash. And Future Flash did mention in his interview that he would prefer to play against Pickle instead for reasons for Flash. I think a lot of the assumptions have probably been made by us and the viewers at home. But I have to see if Pickle can now try and bring this back. Can he is going to be the next question.
Yeah, there really wasn't much contact. As you see, this is sort of that first part of that lap. And as you can see, Pickle really trying to do as much as he can going on that outside line, trying to get as much speed despite not going on the inside line. But as a result, Pickle just wasn't able to catch up with Dark Hyper. I think this was just, yeah, he's like, wow, I mean, that was just good racing. There wasn't much I could really do about that one.
Yeah, understandable indeed. 2 minutes and 24.331 coming out from Dark Hyper, just letting his high level consistency flow through in this series, piggybacking off the previous one. And now we can see how he's going to do here. So we did assume from the very beginning he was going to be a very strong contender in this matchup. It was just depending on how he was going to play against Suchti. If the history was going to repeat itself, then we could see him going potentially all the way. And it seems to be the case. But for Pickle now, I think a lot of people here could be second guessing what Pickle could do in this matchup. But we need to see something dramatic, a huge impact coming out from Pickle in order to, you know, be a thorn in the side of Dark Hyper.
Yeah, and something I'm looking forward to is this Greenland pick here for the track list. And as I was infinitely waffling about earlier with those straightaways and those icebergs, what I was trying to get to and I was messing up on. But usually what happens is because those airtime tricks lets you get up to 30% higher of a top speed, if you're not doing that, you're going to fall behind really, really quickly, because on that straightaway section, there is so much opportunity, or so many opportunities, to bounce back and forth on top of the iceberg and sort of avoid the ground. It's sort of like playing the ground is lava here with Asphalt Legends Unite, and that's why I find it so fun. But it's that 30% increase of top speed, that's what you're really looking for, because if you're in the air going the right direction, you're 30% faster than your opponent. So that's why we're seeing all these risky maneuvers come out, like in that previous track with Jägermeister. If he did hit that little section there on the cave properly, he was going to be in the air for a bit longer, causing him to extend that lead even more. But as we did see, it's risky. You're going to wreck. Unfortunately, that's just going to happen. We are playing in the very margins here. As we come onto Greenland, both these players are going to go for that double barrel roll here. Ooh, it looks like Pickle getting a better barrel roll. Are they going to go onto that railing? They will. Dark Hyper taking it without doing a 360, and as a result, he's going to continue on that victory, blocking back and forth, but Dark Hyper going off the track and wrecking. That was great lines by Pickle. Great job blocking Dark Hyper back and forth, and as a result, Pickle is soaring into the lava cave here, and it looks like Dark Hyper isn't even on the mini-map.
This is exactly what Pickle was after. And go back to what you were saying about this track, the fact that with those icebergs, you have a motive, a way to actually bring yourself back into this matchup. But now he's so far in front, we won't be expecting these risks. We may see it from Pickle, but I'll be a little bit surprised if he even takes it at this point. But let's see how Pickle gets on from here, as we didn't see this track previously in the first series because we didn't get to a track number 3, but it's nice to see fire and ice appearing for our very eyes. But as you see, like Dark Hyper trying to do what he can in order to close this gap. We've got at least 3-4 seconds to try and bring us back. But as you may have noticed from our perspective and from the viewer's perspective, it's going to be highly unlikely we could be seeing this as a tied game unless Pickle makes an absolute mishap somewhere down the line.
Yeah, both these players right now are literal years apart in terms of time, and Pickle going back and forth in between these whirlwind curves here, not doing anything to slow down whatsoever. I'm not sure if he'll go for any risky maneuvers, not even going for that early barrel roll, because sometimes that can also be a little bit finicky, not going for any of these rail grinds either, not even worried, not breaking a single sweat going onto the straightaway, and oh no, Dark Hyper wrecks once again on this little area. It can be risky, it can be slippery, it is ice after all, like I mentioned earlier, but unfortunately for Dark Hyper, that just wasn't meant to be. We will see a tie here unless Pickle, I usually don't want to say things like that because I have incredible caster's curse. I'll say something and then they'll wreck or something will happen. But I think I should be pretty confident in saying that Pickle is going to take the victory here.
Yeah, he should be fine. I'm not a superstitious man, so I think things will be okay for Pickle. And you could see that even if Dark Hyper took the risks over those icebergs, he would not have caught up. Pickle is playing way too safe now. And when you've got this 4 or 5 second plus lead, it's just not going to work out for him in any way, shape or form. But for Pickle, this is the opening he was looking for. Great start from him. And now we're going to see him at the home stretch before he closes out over to the finish line. But he's going to be pretty pleased and pretty happy knowing that he's still in this matchup. He's going to tie things up in terms of the series, and we're going to see what he can do in track number 3. But Dark Hyper, the pressure's going to be on him now to decide how he wants to go about in terms of strategic value in the situation he will be in next.
Yeah, we saw both those different clashing of playstyles in both these first 2 opening tracks. We saw that really precise, like really great driving lines of Dark Hyper in that first Rome track for that sort of EU style that, I mean, Dark Hyper does come from South America, so that's sort of that North American style. On the other hand, with that second track, with Pickle going above and beyond, being really ambitious with those races there, with those 360s in the sky, going up, trying to bounce off of those ice caps there in the beginning, and it just didn't work out for Dark Hyper, unfortunately, but we did still see those clash of play styles. And in that first track, Dark Hyper's really concise driving, really amazing racing line sort of gave him that victory, whereas in the second track, that ambitious North American rambunctious style won it for Pickle.
I think Pickle, you can see from his facial expression, he was a little bit surprised as well. I was like, oh wow, okay, I managed to take that one. And he's probably praying that he'll get another one just quite like it, but we have to see how the beginning goes. Now, we've seen how well Dark Hyper has performed throughout this entire event, and I do feel like he is the better driver in comparison to Pickle. So if you're in Pickle's position right now, would you try and play unsafe and try and play dirty at the beginning, or would you just try and play it clean, safe, and then try and wait for the opportune moment to get a little bit risky?
Yeah, I would play exactly how he did in that first section of Greenland, playing really rambunctiously, doing a whole bunch of 360s, trying to get as much airtime as possible while blocking Dark Hyper at the same exact time. So really, you got to try and bring out that North American demolition derby type of racing style here. Because honestly, if we look at that first track on that Rome track, we saw Pickle playing exactly like Dark Hyper, but Dark Hyper was just so much more precise with his racing lines. It worked out perfectly for Dark Hyper. So it is those clash of play styles really coming out here in these first 2 tracks. So I'm curious to see how they will clash again in this third track, because who knows, maybe, like you said, that sort of risky maneuver, that risky playstyle from Pickle, it could come back to bite him, literally, because you bite pickles.
That is true. That is true indeed. Will Pickle turn into a destruction derby at the very beginning? But we'll find out shortly, as Dark Hyper will get the inside lane. And the problem for Pickle is that with Dark Hyper, every time Dark Hyper does have the lead, it's a real struggle to really take it back from him, because he maintains it so well with his perfect lines across the map and his nitro management. As you still see the double nitro coming out repeatedly from Pickle here, as he uses it again across with the 360. As we go around this next bend, let's see what Pickle's going to do in order to try and get past. But uses Shockwave a little bit early, then actually switching back to breaking back into the double nitro. You see the 360 coming out from both Dark Hyper and Pickle, so they can Shockwave around this next bend.
Yeah, you can see with the 360 floaty drift there with Pickle, he did it a little bit late, so as a result, he sort of drifted on that first corner there. That made him slow down just ever so slightly. Dark Hyper extending this lead just a little bit. We saw that first section there. It wasn't as big of a lead as you would expect, but now that lead has nothing but extended. So, oh, is it going to hit the bus? Just narrowly avoids it. What an incredible save by Pickle. That was going to be very, very disastrous. But now I'm thinking of all the Pickle puns that I can muster up.
Well, you've done quite well so far, mate. I'm expecting at least 10 more before the event closes. So I'll be doing a little count to see how much you're going to bring up here. As Dark Hyper now, you can see he's already this early playing quite safe. He's seen Pickle on the radar. He knows he's behind, but not too far behind as he would like, but that doesn't matter. He's still got at least a couple seconds edge, and this is what I'm talking about with Dark Hyper. He's always performing these perfect lines so well and always on the inside of the track as much as possible, but he's just decreasing every tenth of a second here, then absolutely everywhere around each bend, and he's just having a real struggle to try and close this out. But Pickle's still behind him, still trying to make it work. But let's be honest, with a track like this, it's very hard to cause any kind of accidents or wrecks, so to speak. And you can see now Pickle had a little bit of an accident earlier on. It slowed down quite a bit, and it's actually given even more, increased the lead for Dark Hyper. But it looks like this could be it here, as Dark Hyper hasn't really got too long left to go. It could be a 2-1 victory here, using that perfect nitro to break as he goes around the 360s into the double nitro. And it looks like that is going to be it. As Dark Hyper will take this series 2-1 against Pickle. Commiserations to Pickle, but we will be seeing him in the third place playoff later on, which will be played off stream. And Dark Hyper, he'll be facing against Future Flash in our grand final in the best of 5 series.
Yep, there we have it. Dark Hyper taking the victory, eating pickles for breakfast.
That's one. That's one to add to your tally there. Or maybe 2 if you count each time he says the word. But glad to see that Pickle has been defeated. Obviously, still, as you mentioned, will be in that 3rd, 4th playoff to play out for just a little bit more cash. But, you know, Future Flame mentioned, he's not here for the cash. He's here for his name in the history books, and I'm sure a lot of these people are as well. So massive commiserations to Pickle. But Dark Hyper in a great position now. But he is faced with a tough opponent.
He certainly is, and with Future Flash, he's not really known for being in the mistake department, is he? We saw a couple in the first track in the first series, but that was kind of like a blip. We know that Future Flash tends to be a tiny bit shaky, and I always say this as well. With Future Flash, if you don't take him out at the beginning, then that's it. I think it's pretty much smooth sailing for Future Flash, because he's just ended up being a complete demon on the server. And as you can see, it's a great example. Future Flash hasn't dropped a single track so far, and it's not like he's been playing against any low-tier opponents. He's been playing against a juggernaut such as Cincinnati and Jägermeister, and the fact that he 2-0 sweeps both of them is just a commendation in itself. But for Dark Hyper, though, he's dropped a couple here and there against Pickle and Suchti, and Future Flash did mention that he'd rather play against Pickle, but no, it will be Dark Hyper, and I think this should be an absolute spectacle in itself.
It will be an absolutely amazing game, and I love the way you point out, like, Dark Hyper's been dropping these races all the way along, and it's so much more clean for Future Flash. And I think you could argue that Jägermeister is probably one of the harder opponents you can face as well, and being able to take him down 2-0 is, you know, it's an even bigger achievement, never mind, you know, having that clean run through the bracket as well. So he's definitely the man we need to be watching out for, won time and time again, and he's even reminding us of his achievements. He's like, you're a 3-time champion. Actually, I've won way more than 3 times.
That's pretty offline only.
It's offline events, just to remind you.
What about the other 7, 8 I've got online?
But no, honestly, you know, I think he and we came into this one expecting him to take a 4th one, to be honest with you. So he really is, you know, warranted with that confidence.
Yeah, he deserves, like, it's not even an ego or flex, it's just him being assertive to saying, I'm the best player here, not just in my region, but from a global performance overall. And you've seen it time and time again in every single one of his open finals and Snapdragon Pro Series, dating back to 2019. He's in an absolute form for the entire region, but now he can be in an open form. So an absolute fawn on the global scene now that we've got Unite.
Yeah, it's no surprise that we see Future Flash here going all the way through the bracket. There was really no question about it. Is he the best? Well, right now we're saying he has the opportunity, at least for this future of Asphalt Legends Unite, to claim that title yet again.
I mean, this is the thing. We literally just looked at the bracket and kind of didn't touch on it. Every single favorite has won every single time. Like, we haven't had any upsets at all, really. And, you know, is it bad that I kind of want one? Absolutely nothing against Future Flame, don't get me wrong. Lovely guy, seems like an absolutely wonderful personality. But I think maybe an upset's due. I guess we'll be finding out after a very short break.
Excuse me. Perfect.
The Snapdragon Pro Series is brought to you by Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Monster Energy, and DHL.
Welcome back to the Snapdragon Pro Series Asphalt Legends Unite. We have arrived at the pinnacle, at the final, and I don't think we could have asked for a much better one.
No, this is actually a great concept to talk about in terms of Dark Hyper. A slight dark horse, I think, so to speak, considering what we've seen from the side of the bracket with CEST and all the other names there. It's been some incredible stuff here, but finally we get to crown our first Asphalt 9 Unite champion. And I don't think it's too much of a surprise that we've got Future Flash in one end, and with Dark Hyper, with how well he's been performing in terms of his refinements, it's not going to be smooth sailing.
No, not whatsoever. And I think this is going to be an interesting matchup because we've seen both these players compete at tournaments simultaneously before, but they never really had a good opportunity to clash with each other. Future Flash coming from that iOS section, Dark Hyper coming from Android. So that is going to be an interesting clash of, I guess, personalities and playstyles as well. We see that iOS Demolition Derby, but Future Flash is just the most precise driver out there. So it's sort of taking a little bit of that Android playbook.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we could have asked a better way to really show how Asphalt Legends Unite has brought in this crossplay than having an Android iOS final. Like, it is generally the best way to round it off, and especially with these two players as well being as skillful as they are. You see in the track list now, we have moved to that best of 5 for the finals, so it's coming down a bit more to who's going to be able to take it long haul.
Yeah, I think from this track list, we've got a nice diverse selection here to really understand the accolades and the indicators of what to expect, especially from the very beginning on Buenos Aires and then going into Rome afterwards. So it's going to be very curious to see how Future Flash is going to maintain the lead as he has done in the past, because every time we've seen Dark Hyper do it in every single series, it's such a tough nut to crack to get it off him. But now he's against an opponent who will cut every corner, who will take every risk in the book. All those straight lines, how well he's going to maintain and try and close the gap and put the pressure on, because we said it before, Future Flash is a fearless opponent. He's been in so many grand finals now. He's been winning more grand finals than we've played matches total at this point.
Yeah, I mean, going up against Future Flash has to be one of the most daunting things ever. And before Asphalt Legends Unite, Dark Hyper might be like, well, you know, I can sit here, peruse my Android enemies and just sort of play about. But now, on the other side of the bracket is Future Flash all of a sudden, and that has to be one of the scariest things.
And another thing to point out as well, you did mention earlier on that even though iOS has the top players, collectively Android has the better players in terms of caliber, in terms of the median. And we've seen that because in the semi-finals, 3 out of 4 were previously Android.
Yeah, and the other thing you'll see is on the leaderboards, in terms of these time trials, you'll see Android players now in Unite are sweeping the floor. And so iOS, we really got to get those players in. I mean, we do have Future Flash, we have Alex, we have Fra, but as you were pointing out earlier, we're surprised that we don't see those players in this tournament.
Yeah, it's just Future Flash holding down the fort. That's what it is for iOS. Like, you know, you said is they've just got the top players. The average Android player probably beats the average iOS player, but at the end of the day, it's, you know, it's the first place who people remember.
Well, that is exactly it. And, you know, we know that Mion and Fra and Alex and many others haven't been able to make it here. And that's how tough the competition is. It isn't just because the iOS side or anything like that. It just shows how tough it's been. No matter how many hours invested, you're not always going to make it. And that's why we get a little bit of a shapeshift of some of the players who are coming into the scene. And again, you know, we've seen a few players so far today we haven't seen in a few years. They're pretty much de-rusted now, so to speak.
I mean, I don't want to say too much about iOS players, but I'm an iOS player and I've only qualified once. I don't know how much that says about iOS playstyles versus Android, but look, I mean, with Asphalt Legends Unite, that is one of the most fantastic things about this expansion is how much we're going to see iOS versus Android now. These players are going to have the opportunity to go one-on-one, head-on-head.
I mean, that's the desire that I'm sure people have had for so long. I'm not sure about the Android guys wanting to play against Future Flash, to be honest with you, but it does seem like this is, you know, a huge thing for Asphalt, and I'm sure that it's going to play out absolutely perfectly as we get into the first race.
Here we go, grand final here between Future Flash and Dark Hyper. Best of 5 to see who's going to take it all in the Asphalt 9 Unite Global Final here at the Snapdragon Pro Series. And who's going to take it? It's going to be anybody's guess. We know Future Flash is the favourite coming in, but Dark Hyper already showing what he's worth with a nice early lead in this first track.
Here we go, Dark Hyper with everything to play for and everything to lose. Future Flash knows he has such a great chance of winning this, but he's starting out on the back pedal, and there is only one thing standing in between Future Flash and yet another trophy, and that is Dark Hyper. Here we go on Buenos Aires, that shorter track that we saw earlier some players mess up on. Both these players taking the ramp extremely well. Future Flash knocking on the door right behind Dark Hyper, trying to do that overtake over a course of the airtime. And will they get it? Oh no, the knockdown comes out. Future Flash going right on top of Dark Hyper. That's going to secure the victory here for this first track for Future Flash. Dark Hyper must be dazed and confused.
You could see it was just a matter of time with the lines which Future Flash was taking, a little bit of added nitro from the railing he was scraping across earlier on to have that consistent shockwave over the previous 3 jumps, and you just knew, and I think Dark Hyper knew as well, if he didn't gain enough speed or momentum in order to maintain it, then that is what is going to occur, and he's going to be jumping straight over him, and Future Flash took it straight away, and now he's going to be walking off here potentially with this first track victory. Nice bit of leeway here for him in order to start this grand final.
Yeah, Buenos Aires was always going to be a toss-up. I mean, we saw how volatile that track was with some of the previous matchups here in this tournament, so I think it was a bit of an odd thing to see that knockdown coming through. We didn't really see a knockdown, I don't think, throughout this tournament. I think it was only wrecks and bumps and clashes and things like that.
Most of the time, I think.
Yeah, yep, definitely. So that was a curious thing to see as well. Future Flash, not really also known for being super aggressive. He's just so precise, and honestly, he's just always in front of the other opponent anyway, so he doesn't really need to knock anyone down. But for these, for this next second track here, I think Dark Hyper is going to have to go on this aggressive foot, try and get that early knockdown, maybe try and block Future Flash from getting that early lead. I think that's realistically, honestly speaking, the only way that he's going to be able to get this victory.
We know that Buenos Aires is a track. It's quite a short one, so if you find the opportunity, you take it straight away, and that's exactly what he did with the risk to get it on top. But I think that's where the pressure on Dark Hyper came. The fact that he rode those railings just a little bit earlier and a little bit longer on the side of Future Flash was able to help him maintain that shockwave over the next 3 jumps and then be able to gain the speed required in order to not just to overtake, but land on top of him and just put an absolute end and misery, sadly, for Dark Hyper in that first track. It is what it is. But it's not like it's a best of 3. This is a best of 5 if everyone's just catching up, watching at home. And Future Flash just, again, showing what he does best here in this scene. He wants to try and be that global champion once again.
Yeah, there we go. We see this knockdown coming in again here on the replay, right on top, flattening Dark Hyper into the ground, and that's what made it or broke it in this track here. So, look, I mean, like I said, this aggression, it's going to be something that Dark Hyper is going to have to take advantage of in this next race. I mean, look, we like to see as much clean racing as possible. These head-to-heads are always very respectful between the players, but if you're Dark Hyper right now, you have to think to yourself, look, I have to be aggressive right now. I have to get in Future Flash's face. I have to knock him down. I have to bump him. I have to crash into him in order to really guarantee that you get ahead, because clean race, in terms of that sort of driving style, you really got to favor Future Flash for these next couple of tracks.
And for everyone at home, we've got codes coming here left, right, and center. This time it's going to be in the bottom middle, as we do have some free items for you at home. Make sure you get onto Asphalt 9 Unite, head to the redeem section and put in that code for some free goodies. Sadly, me and Muff won't be able to right this second, but I'm sure we might be able to try and grab some later on if we get the chance. And yeah, I think you're absolutely right with what you were saying about how Dark Hyper needs to perform. It's another situation where, as a player, you want it to be as clean as possible, but as a spectator, you want to see some dirty antics coming out, which we may see depending on how Dark Hyper's feeling, what mood he's in, and how he's positioned at the start, and what accolades he can bring to the table here. But I'm sure he's having a few thoughts in terms of the process of how he's going to begin at the very start of this matchup. But this is a great start here for Future Flash. And you know what? We've seen him do it once before, maybe even twice, but this will be absolutely at his peak and pinnacle. And imagine if he takes this series 3-0. That means he's gone the entire competition at a global final, not just a region, not just a platform base, but an entire global final without dropping a single track, which is an accolade which he'll be very proud of and will definitely add to his collection.
Yeah, you talk about esports greats, you can talk about Simple for Counter-Strike, you can talk about other players for like Dota 2 and other games, and with Asphalt Legends Unite, that first name that comes to mind is Future Flash with just the amount of domination. And right at the very beginning here into our next track, Dark Hyper doing like I thought he would. He's immediately shoving Future Flash into that other section, but Future Flash right on top trying to go for the knockdown again. He's overtaking up onto the corner there, going into this chicane. Future Flash doing a great job of catching up and overtaking Dark Hyper in that first section of our first lap.
No fear, no care at all at this final hurdle here. It's Global Finals Snapdragon Pro Series Asphalt 9 Unite, and Future Flash still maintaining that lead, using that 360, and is going to get the canister in order to shockwave as he goes towards his next jump. But Dark Hyper had to go for the perfect nudge. He's actually decided to actually go onto the left-hand side, which I'm sure was a mistake. And as he goes around this next bend, we've still got a while to go. One of the longer portions of this track. And now you can see here Future Flash continuing on with that previous jump with the shockwave into the perfect nitro, using the brake nitro to now drift across to use the shockwave into it. And my goodness, look at the difference, about 2 seconds now. And not only does Future Flash want to win this series, he wants to win it 3-0 in a clean sweep, which just is unheard of.
A clean sweep best of 5 grand finals will be incredible, but Dark Hyper doing an absolutely incredible job pulling up that barrel roll onto the side of the ramp. That's not something you can get out of every day without a wreck or something like that. So Future Flash, although playing a bit cautiously, has managed to open this door a little bit to Dark Hyper, give him an opportunity to catch up, because we've seen Future Flash, as soon as he takes that lead, and as he did in that first lap, he played really way more cautiously than normal. So as a result, Dark Hyper sort of started to catch up, but we can see Future Flash taking these lines incredibly well, not opting to go for the other route there to get more airtime. And Dark Hyper wrecks. I think he was trying to do the same thing he did last time, where he went on that left route to go and catapult himself up into the air to get that speed, but unfortunately it didn't quite work out this time, and Future Flash secures another win in a row. He hasn't dropped a single track yet.
And remember, this is not a global final, it's not an EU region base, it's not platform based. completely cross-platform in a global setting, and he's still able to dominate the scene. And you said it before, he's even mentioned it himself on stage, where he's itched his name in victory, and you can see that he's saying just one more to go, and then he'll be able to secure himself this victory of a lion's share of $10,000 and the first ever Asphalt Legends Unite champion. And it's definitely something he wants to add to the books. But my goodness, yeah, everything you've said so far has been down to a T. He's been playing very aggressively, fearless, very well refined. See the lines there as well. Just incredible stuff here. But we have to take a look at the very beginning to how he was able to overtake. It's the 360 he's able to gain, but with his nitro management and the most he gained in comparison with the additional airtime, he was just able to fly away. But fair enough to Dark Hyper to be able to risk that barrel roll over the second jump at the beginning of that second lap.
Yeah, you really had to pull out every single risky maneuver you can, but it just wasn't enough. Future Flash with incredibly precise driving, and it really was that first section there, that airspeed tricks in the beginning there, bouncing up back and forth between those barrel rolls and those ramps, overtaking Dark Hyper literally over the top of his car, and that's what really made it for that race. And Fury Dark Hyper tried really to get those risky maneuvers in that second lap there, but unfortunately it didn't work out. But I'm really looking at this next track though, because it could be either a 3-0 or we could see a reverse best of 5 grand finals reverse sweep. I like to see those.
I would love to yeah, I want to see a few more. It could be a quick day thanks to Future Flash, but I want to see a few more. I want to see it go all the way, the distance. But does Dark Hyper have it in his arsenal? That's going to be the question. He seems a little bit deflated from what he's witnessed so far. And even having the lead at the very beginning, you saw from there that Future Flash, with the additional 360s and airtime he had enough nitro to not only overtake, but just extend his lead by a huge margin. And even with the risks that Dark Hyper was taking, he still couldn't close that gap. But let's see if anything can change up here, as it's the third and potentially final track, with Dark Hyper now with the slight lead, a little bit of bashing as they're trying to go towards that first jump. It looks like he's going to decide to go for the right-hand side, and so will Future Flash, as they both use that double nitro for the durability. Get around this next bend, but it looks like Future Flash is going to go the right-hand side instead.
Yeah, this was, I think, a decision that was sort of forced upon Future Flash. He didn't want to crash into Dark Hyper or go immediately into that barrel roll and wreck. But as we can see, he's jumping back and forth onto the cave section there, just like previously. Didn't wreck, thankfully, but Dark Hyper has continued to extend this lead, doing a great job. But we've seen this mirrored before in those past couple of tracks where Dark Hyper takes that early lead, but unfortunately isn't able to keep it. Future Flash going onto the bottom corner there, trying to go through that inside line as Dark Hyper bringing it back and forth, trying to get the nitro from those near misses. And we can see Future Flash going well above and beyond, not getting too much of that airtime because Dark Hyper bounces off back and forth between that dirt patch. They're doing a great job extending that airtime, and it looks like Future Flash is going to be on the back pedal for finally this one time here as we head shortly into our second lap.
Dark Hyper needs to be careful a little bit. I've noticed that his refinements are lacking slightly in comparison. His lines haven't been as clean as they were before, but still able to have a second lead on Future Flash. But for Future Flash, it's going to be a little bit different now. Obviously, he was forced upon, as you mentioned earlier, to take that right route, but not this time. And it looks like finally a crash comes out from Future Flash, and he had to take that left route. If he didn't take it, then he would have just been falling behind once again, and it was a risk he had to take. And even though he did wreck himself, and it was self-inflicted, of course, there is no round about it. He couldn't take that right route again.
All right, Dark Hyper, this is your opportunity. You're getting one track off of Future Flash. Nobody has been able to do that for this entire tournament. So this has to be the moment where Dark Hyper seizes the opportunity and tries and maybe plays a different play style for these next couple of tracks. I mean, assuming nothing disastrous goes on right here between this and the finish line. But we are extending here in our best of 5 grand finals. Dark Hyper doing an amazing job of clean racing, incredible blocks there, trying to get Future Flash off the road, and he did it successfully. He will cross the finish line, making it 2-1. Future Flash not able to get the perfect best of 5 or perfect tournament here.
Yeah, Dark Hyper forcing his opponent onto the right-hand side. We also forced Future Flash to take a few risks he needed to require, but for Future Flash to make a self-inflicted moments there at the beginning of the second track. It's not something you normally see every day here, Marv, but, you know, it is what it is. But he's happy, he's cool, calm and collected. He's still up by 1 track. It's when it gets to track number 5 where the pressure's going to be on and he's going to be second-guessing himself, thinking, like, what on earth do I do now? But I don't really see Future Flash as that kind of player. He's not the sort of person where he'll be worried about the pressure of it leading to the final track of the match or anything like that. He's been in this situation way too many times, but these things do happen, even to the best of you, as that was a great example there. But you can see he's just laughing off. He knows it is what it is. We'll let Dark Hyper have that one, but you can see that Dark Hyper isn't the most pleased about his performance so far, because not only had he only won 1 track, he's still got a couple more left to go. He realises that he's still got a long way to go before he has anything close of securing this victory.
Yeah, Dark Hyper's got a long road ahead of him, both literally and figuratively, if he continues to win and extend this playtime here. But yeah, as you said, Future Flash sort of just laughing it off, and I don't think he has any worry right now. I mean, just 1 lost track is a bit unfortunate to see. You won't get that absolute perfect tournament sweep here, but for Dark Hyper, he's going to be sweating here, thinking to himself, can I actually bring this best of 5 back? Can I do this reverse sweep best of 5? Whereas for Future Flash, like he was pointing out earlier, he just needs to win 1 more. I don't think he really has too much pressure on him, and I think this time he was just like, oh, I'll give Dark Hyper 1, you know, whatever, I'll let him win. I'll just play it off or whatever, and then in this next track, I'll definitely win. But we'll have to wait and see. I mean, again, Dark Hyper could maybe bring out some of those more risky maneuvers that we've seen him try in previous tracks. And look, sometimes it made him wreck, sometimes it brought out the victory here, but potentially, again, the final race here in our best of 5 using the beautiful Apollo Evo Fury. Dark Hyper versus Future Flash for the title, for the championship, and they're bashing one against each other, knocking on wood each other. They're going back and forth. Future Flash taking the inside line and that victory as well, or that early lead here going into the Canyon launch section. Dark Hyper on the back pedal, not doing quite a whole lot in order to keep up. It looks like Future Flash just had so many more opportunities to use Shockwave to get up to the top speed in air.
Yeah, you can see Shockwave stops and Shockwave again to make sure he can maintain it enough for that second jump, and use that double nitro earlier, one for the durability to be able to get around that previous corner as well. As Dark Hyper with the perfect nitro now with the single, using the double now just to try and at least keep a hold of his lead. Tried to ride the rails a tiny bit there, but was not successful. But he realises that he's still in closing position here, but a few risks, as you mentioned, will need to come to fruition at some stage. This track does have the full package, so he does have time and he does have ways and means in order to close this on Future Flash.
Yeah, for whatever reason, we've seen Dark Hyper have a lack of nitro here in this first lap, and it really felt like Future Flash was really doing a good job maintaining that perfect nitro and those shockwaves. They're going to rail grind this first section here, but Future Flash wrecks. I think he went above the barrier and actually crashed into the wall. That's going to extend Dark Hyper's lead, and I think this best of 5 is going to be extended yet again. We could see either a reverse sweep here, Dark Hyper doing everything in his power to make sure that he won't wreck now, because he has the opportunity to try and crawl back with this best of 5. He's trying to cling on to dear life.
Again, another moment where in this tournament it was just a simple clip, which is not something we ever see, which is just unheard of. But Future Flash, yeah, he's going to be trailing behind pretty far. He'll need to have Dark Hyper to create some or perform some horrendous accident here along the way, but I don't think it's going to happen, especially on this type of track. But yeah, my goodness, we were talking about the perfect tournament, and now is it his tournament to achieve? This is going to be the next question. Is Dark Hyper now hasn't really got too far left to go, just a few bends now before he closes to the finish line. But Dark Hyper is now going to be thinking to himself, I can do this. I can actually take the entirety of this tournament. Or is it going to be just false hope given by Future Flash and he'll take it? We'll have to see. But there we have it though. Dark Hyper going to tie things up 2 apiece. And sadly for Future Flash, it has been self-inflicted both times. So we just need one perfect race coming from him in order to take the entire tournament. And you can see Dark Hyper now getting a little bit more hyped up and a bit more, not as demoralized, as deflated as he once was, but now realizes that actually this could be his to take in the reverse sweep.
Here we go. We have to go all the way in our finals here for the best of 5 for the Gamescom Cologne victory here. Future Flash, things are starting to fall apart for him. You can see he's getting a little bit nervous, biting his nails. Dark Hyper getting a bit elated after that first victory there. And here you see what exactly happened. It looked like Future Flash tried to be a little ambitious, try to wall ride, make sure you can get that momentum into that second lap. But unfortunately, his car sort of flipped up onto that barrel roll, or onto that mountain mountain there, and that didn't quite work out very well for him. So this map winner will be Dark Hyper, extending this best of 5 into our final required track.
What a way to kick off this global final here for the first Asphalt 9 Legends Unite event. The fact that it's going the distance all the way. I did say earlier, I want to see a few more tracks, but I didn't expect it to actually come to fruition, which is actually a little bit of a shock to the system for me, for us especially, I'm sure for the viewers at home, as when they're going to kick things off in this final track of this grand final, as we start off from Future Flash's perspective already with a nice lead, and we'll see, and hopefully no more self-inflictions compared to what we witnessed in tracks 3 and 4.
Yeah, Cairo is going to be a really interesting one as well. This is one of the more technical tracks. I mean, especially with 1,000 minarets, you see a ton of barrel rolls in that first section, as we saw Future Flash jumping back and forth between those ramps. Now, it's really great for you to get that airtime in the beginning there, but you can very easily slip and mess up and then possibly fall on your back like a turtle, like we've seen earlier. I think Jägermeister tried to take a barrel roll previously. So in this first section here of 1,000 minarets, you have to be really, really careful with how you take those barrel rolls, because either you can launch yourself into an incredible start or you can fall right on your back.
Surely will indeed, as there was a technical issue, which I think from the side of Dark Hyper, but he wants to make sure everything's perfect and ready for him to go into this final track. And if you're just joining us, this is the grand final. It is a best of 5 between Future Flash and Fury's Dark Hyper, and it's currently 2 apiece. Track number 5, but I think we might be throwing it to Mr. Chambers on the stage before we head into it.
Who you guys are supporting?
Let's hear it. Maybe we start on my side. Who wants to see Dark Hyper win? Give it up for Dark Hyper!
All right. My guy, who wants to see Future Flash? One more time.
One more time. It sounded pretty equal, so we have to decide this right now. Let's give it up for Dark Hyper!
All right, and one more time before this deciding map. How about Future Flash?
I say, without further ado, let's get this show on the road. Here is the grand final, the very, very last race. Have fun!
Thank you very much, Max and Ian Chambers. The lads here getting the crowd hyped up and ready for this final track. And for these two, it's a very stressful situation, just waiting for the moment to get back on and ready. And you can see with Dark Hyper, I think there was an issue, but it seems to be corrected. And going back to what I was mentioning earlier at home, if you guys are just joining us, it's a grand final. It's a 2 apiece between Future Flash and Dark Hyper. Let's see who's going to take it fast. It looks like Future Flash will get the outside lane to get that jump first. And it's going to go straight to the shockwave over this next jump. And it looks like it's going to continue that shockwave over to the next one, but it's going to switch over to the double nitro. But Dark Hyper isn't too far behind. He's about half a second in comparison, using that perfect nitro to get around this next bend.
Yeah, Dark Hyper trailing behind Future Flash here, bumping into a bit of the walls, might cause a little bit of a mistake in that lost speed as we go onto these couple of next chaining barrel rolls here. Lots of barrel rolls you'll see in 1,000 minarets, really gets those players up to speed really quickly. But again, as you saw, if you don't take them perfectly, both of them are going to try and go over the wall. Future Flash going to be able to do it. Dark Hyper not quite pulling it off. That's going to cause him a bit more speed loss. This is going to be really tough for Dark Hyper to pull it back. I don't think he's really going to have that big of a chance to do so. So Future Flash going into this 360 corner, he has everything to play for right now. He has the perfect opportunity to try and bring back this best of 5. It was slowly slipping out of his hands, but he has this opportunity right now as we near our first lap and here as we go onto the second lap after these next couple of corners. Dark Hyper creeping up ever so quietly here in the back foot here. It looks like Future Flash gonna have to see him in the rearview mirror as we head onto the first straightaway here of our second lap. This is the final lap of our best of 5 grand finals. Future Flash doing a great job maintaining this lead. Dark Hyper trying to do everything he can, but Future Flash just has so much shockwave up his sleeve. He's going to do a great job of getting him up to speed, and it looks like he's going to continue maintaining this lead, trying to do everything he can to not put this at rest. He's going to try and put Dark Hyper in his place here as we go into the pyramid section, going out here into the 360 corners, and Dark Hyper, I don't know what he's going to have to do to try and claw this one back.
Will Future Flash go over this next bridge and actually risk going over the wall? That's going to be my next question. It's a toughie, but he's going to try and take it anyway. But it looks like Dark Hyper tried to achieve it, but instead he was not able to. and it's going to cost him a lot of speed, but still, it's actually right behind Future Flash. He's got the Shockwave, he's got a lot more Nitro. We can definitely gain on him and try and collapse if possible. Look how much Shockwave he's able to maintain during the last few jumps, but we've still only got a few more bends left remaining. If Future Flash realizes that he's close on his tail, but it looks like this could be Future Flash's tournament to win. And in the first global final here for Asphalt 9 Unite. And you can see Dark Hyper still just closing the gap, only a few microseconds behind, and should be able to take it. Yes, he will. Future Flash managed to win the grand final 3-2 in the series, and he will be your first Snapdragon Pro Series Asphalt 9 Unite Global Champion.
What a race. What an incredible series. We saw Dark Hyper doing everything in his power to pull back that best of 5, and we did finally see it. Usually you expect with Future Flash that quick 3-0 we've seen many times before, but this time around it wasn't meant to be for Dark Hyper, unfortunately. But for Future Flash, the journey continues, and he's going to add yet another trophy to his incredibly long list of victories here for Asphalt.
It was so good, to be honest. Like, Future Flash just played incredibly all the way through. I'm kind of sad that we didn't get to see the reverse sweep, though, I will say. Like, it generally got the do an upset, please, someone just do an upset, because it's just gone the way it's meant to have gone all tournament long. I would have loved to see an upset, but I don't think there's a person more deserving than Future Flash.
Yeah, it's very hard not to. This is why he was one of the heavy favourites as well. I feel like with Future Flash, he was a little bit slow going to the second portion of that second lap, more due to the fact that Dark Hyper maintained that Shockwave so well the last 3 or 4 jumps for at least about 15-20 seconds. And I kind of feel like if Dark Hyper got across that wall on the second lap, we could be seeing a different champion.
Absolutely. And look, massive respects and commiserations to Dark Hyper there. But we're going to go over this bracket here in a second to see how this whole tournament played out. And as you would expect, Future Flash dominating that upper bracket. And we had a little bit of a demolition derby in that bottom with a bunch of 2-1 victories here. And as you can see for that third place decider, Jägermeister managed to bring the win home against Pickle. Unfortunately, that NA's last hope didn't do quite so well.
I think top four is pretty solid, but yeah, it's okay. You know, listen, it's not quite Europe, but maybe North America will get there next time off. I mean, you know, Pickle did do extremely well nonetheless. Like the races that he was in, always so close. Managed to edge a few there as well. But at the end of the day, you know, Future Flash, hugely deserving champion for this. And you know, through the interviews, I just absolutely loved how humble he was. Like he was like trying not to insult people all the way through, and you know, his celebration just shows how passionate he is about the game as well.
Yeah, I think Future Flash well deserving. He's got another accolade added to his championship victories. But we've got an interview with Future Flash and the rest of the team to see how things went.
What an absolute nail-biter of a finish. But not only that, also behind the scenes, you just played your match against Pickle. You also won. This is why you're here. Also a nail-biter. You went 2-1 as well. But I will say, before we do anything, let's medal you guys up really quickly. You have deserved it. We're going to start from outside to inside.
I know how hard you fought to get here. Let me do the honors here. Second place.
You want to do it together, Ian?
Just Dark Hyper, I've just got to say, tough final there. I think you did yourself really proud going all the way. How happy are you with a silver medal?
I'm quite happy. Also, I want to gold, but the last map, it was too lucky, mainly on the starting position. So it is what it is. Second place is a bad. Congrats to Flash.
Flash, you did it. You said to me just behind the scenes before you came out here for the grand final that this win was your destiny. Is that how you feel?
It is, and it will always be my destiny to win. I will always try my best to put my legacy and my name up there. I'm really happy about my performance. I messed up 2 races actually for no reason, but I'm really happy with the outcome anyway. The races were very close, and as it should be. And this is an unbelievable moment for me once again.
How sick are these medals, by the way?
Incredibly. They're also really heavy. Ian, I heard you got something behind the stage that you want to get for us. While you do that, I need you guys to step it up. But while we do that, give it up one more time for your third, second, and obviously first place of the Asphalt Legends Unite World Finals! We have have Jägermeister, Dark Hyper, and Future Flash! And just one more thing, a little bit extra for you. We got a gift from our friends at Apollo. It is a custom replica of the Apollo Evo, the car that just helped you cement your legacy. Feel free to open it up, maybe show it to the crowd.
Look at
this, what a beauty.
Beautiful. Amazing. Future Flash got the job done here. He is our champion. A massive thank you to every single one of you who watched along at home and for all of you in the audience live at Gamescom. Another piece of history on the stage. It's been epic. Congratulations to you guys and to all of the players that competed. Round of applause here from our audience for all of the players. And we will see you next time. Thank you very much.
That is some serious Snapdragon Pro Series silverware, isn't it, really? I think if it was on my neck, I'd be like being dragged down. It looks so heavy. But the top three, hugely deserving of this accolade, and Future Flash especially, but second and third as well. What a performance throughout today.
It certainly was. I thought that was going to be the keys to the car. I was like, my goodness, we're going to have to de-rust and start competing again if that's going to be it. But yeah, I think with the podium finishes, it was what we expected in terms of the favourites, in terms of like who's going to perform where, how, and why. I think from what we saw a lot of 2-1s. We didn't see too many clean sweeps. We saw some great racing overall, some clean lines, refinements, the full package, and some destruction, some of it being self-inflicted. But I think apart from that, overall, a great way to start off Asphalt 9 Unite esports scene.
Yeah, you think you and me, if we team up, we could take down Future Flash? You think we could have a chance?
I don't know about that. Maybe it's a bit old now, but...
Oh, man. I was hoping.
Remember, I'm getting on a bit now, so...
Reaction time's starting to...
A nice downtrend going. Yeah, that's not for me now, not for me.
But yeah, that final was just incredible. I got goosebumps on my skin. I was really thinking we were going to see that reverse sweep best of 5. That would have been incredible.
Imagine.
But Future Flash doing everything that he could to take that final race and cementing his legacy here in Asphalt Legends Unite with the first Grand Finals victory.
Yeah, I mean, it's sad to not see that reverse sweep. It'd have been, a really great ending, but I think we did have a deserving winner. That is going to be it from Asphalt Legends Unite here on the Snapdragon Pro Series. I'd like to give a massive thank you to our sponsors in DHL, Monster, and obviously Snapdragon Elite Gaming. A huge thank you to Gameloft for making the game that we all have absolutely loved to watch. And a big thank you to EFG in the background and all the production team for allowing us to put this on. And obviously, a huge thank you to the Gamescom Arena as well for allowing us to have that absolutely incredible stage. To all the viewers, thank you very much for stopping by. Goodbye.
The Snapdragon Pro Series is brought to you by Snapdragon Elite Gaming, Monster Energy, and DHL.